This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The wait is over, NFL fans. We got opening night tonight. Bills, Rams. We'll get into that. And, of course, the countdown to the Banjo Bowl continues. I'm very much looking forward to welcoming in one of the stars of the Labor Day Classic win and a guy that knows a hell of a lot about this rivalry from both sides, Nic Demski of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, coming up in a few minutes on the program. We'll also welcome in Ken Wiebe to the show, get Ken's thoughts on the Bombers Riders, as well as the Winnipeg Jets heading into training camp. And man, cannot believe that Young Stars tournament, Remo, that you're all fired up about is starting next week. We'll get to all of that. And later on in the program, this is going to be really, really cool. Dave Bidini, who many of us remember him mostly as a member of the Rio Statics, but an accomplished author, filmmaker, is the co-director of the new Summit 72 series documentary that's starting on CBC next week. And Dave's going to come by and talk about the project, what fans can look forward to. Of course, as we are right now in the midst of the 50th anniversary of the Summit Series, the Winnipeg game played just 2 days ago, 50 years ago this week. So Dave Bidini, Ken Wiebe, Nic Demski, going to be a great show with lots to chop up, and we'll get Remis in here in just a minute. Before we do that, though, a big thanks to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day, including Princess Auto, Not Auto Corp, Coolbet Canada, as well as the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend, Canadian Club Whiskey, Canada's favorite, Boston Pizza, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Culligan Water, Aikens Lake, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health, and our newest sponsor, welcome to the gang, Consolidated Supply over at Niagara Avenue. We'll let you know more about our great sponsors. Hopefully you'll continue to support them. But right now, let's welcome in Michael Remis. And Remo, are you excited for this Thursday nighter tonight? I know we got to wait 2 more days for the Banjo Bowl and 3 more days for the full main course of NFL football on Sunday. But we got a juicy matchup tonight to kick things off.
Yeah, I find it really hard every year to get like super pumped up for the Thursday game. I know you are. I definitely am. I'm going to be tuning in for sure, but it's just such a tease. NFL to me is sitting there on Sunday for all day watching as many games at the same time as you can. However, the primetime games over the last year, especially these two teams, you know it's going to be a good game. I'm started getting flashbacks. So, watching Rams, I feel like Rams and the Bills now have been part of some of the best games of the last couple of years. Rams, Chiefs, Bills, Chiefs. I guess the Chiefs is a common denominator. So you would think that this is going to be maybe a high scoring game too. They both have good defenses. Both can score. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll have to get some, I guess I'll have to get some DraftKings lineups in or something.
Yeah,
I'll check the Coolbet props.
My first opportunity to remind you all, set your lineups, everyone. Hopefully you had a great fantasy draft or auction or however you made your teams with your friends. You got to make sure that lineup is set in advance because there'll be a lot of fantasy relevant players coming up in this Rams-Bills game tonight. We'll talk about it a little more later on. But you know what, Remo? Let's get right to the why not question of the day. And this is a perfect opportunity for those of you to have a chance to permanently ink an I told you so with your Super Bowl pick. Hey, it's opening day of NFL season. Let's get right to it. Who's winning the Super Bowl? We want to hear from you. You can hit us up in the chat, but definitely if you're watching this show after we've been live, leave a comment in the YouTube channel on today's episode to be there forever. And maybe if your team wins, you can go back. Guys, go back to the Bills-Rams game number 1. In the comments, I called Team X to win the Super Bowl, and you can let us know why. So give us your Super Bowl pick. Who is bringing home the Lombardi in February? But make that call now before it begins. That's our Why Not question of the day. And we'll probably have another Why Not question today about the Banjo Bowl coming up a little later on. We figured this would be a perfect time with the beginning of NFL season for everyone to make their mark. Leave your pick in the comments right here at Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Remo, do you have a Super Bowl pick? Or are you running with the favorites, the Buffalo Bills, who are plus 650 on Coolbet right now?
No, I that's not my style. I want to pick the team that not as many people pick, the team that's not the favorite. It's too easy just to look at the list and pick your favorite. So I was thankful that you put the question of the day in before the show, so I could think about it. But I'm gonna run with the LA Chargers. They're probably not gonna win because they never win. However, Justin Herbert, this guy is a stud. Another year in the league. I know it's a meat grinder of a division. Oh, yes, the Chiefs are in there, so you're probably not going to like that pick. But maybe this is their year. I'll go with the Chargers.
Chargers are 14-1.
Yeah, they were up there. I think they were like 5th best odds.
Yep, exactly. Well, I'll tell you right now what they are. Just quickly, AFC West, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. We'll spend a little more time on this later on, as well as the games on the Coolbet lines. But I'm just pulling Coolbet up right now. The Chargers are 2-1 to win the division. They're plus 200. The Broncos are plus 300. And the Chiefs, who have owned the AFC West since Andy Reid showed up in Kansas City, are plus 165. And the Raiders are plus 725. All really, really good football teams. And as far as the Super Bowl odds right now, as I mentioned, the Bills are the favorite, plus 650. I'm not sure how that could possibly go wrong. And the Chiefs, I was on the Chiefs about a month ago at 11-1. They've fallen down to 9-1 right now. They're the second team. Tampa Bay is at 10-1. Green Bay 13, and then the Chargers and the defending champion Rams, the two LA teams, at 14. And I don't mind the San Francisco 49ers, to be honest with you, at 18. I got the Niners as the NFC winners. So it's all there. We'll chop that up at Coolbet a little bit later on, and we'll certainly be talking lots of NFL. We'll have maybe a bit more of a longer segment looking at the games for the weekend coming up tomorrow. But of course, our main focus tomorrow is going to be on the rematch between the Bombers and the Riders at a sold-out IG Field on Saturday afternoon. So yeah, why not question of the day in the comments? Let us know your Super Bowl pick, and we'll be able to go back later on and give some props to whoever had the great pick later on in the season. Remo, let's start off with the Goldeyes, though. Obviously that was the big thing happening last night, and I unfortunately wasn't able to get to the game because I had my big fantasy auction last night. Sort of unfortunate timing. I'm certainly hoping that the Fish can win another and get back here to play another series. And there's some good news and bad news from last night's game. The good news is the Goldeyes won. Big rally in, I believe, the third inning. They didn't look back, and they strike first and are now one win away from beating the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks. This series shifts to Fargo for Game 2 and Game 3. But, mandatory that the team won at home before heading on the road. So the Goldeyes got it. The bad news about this, though, is that the game was marred by a gruesome injury to Goldeyes all-star Max Murphy. And from all accounts of it, I had a couple friends that were sitting right behind the plate last night, and it was described, the broken leg that they believe Max suffered, as Joe Theismann-esque. And, he and David Washington were the two teammates for the first time ever in American Association history to hit 30 home runs in the same season. And it's just an absolutely devastating injury to a team that did what they had to do and get that big win. But with arguably their most important and impactful offensive player out, certainly it's going to be tough for the Goldeyes going forward. But they'll certainly be trying to win one for Max tonight in Fargo But for such a big win for the team, it really was somewhat overshadowed by the concern for one of their star players.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Seeing a member of your team who's been such a big part of it have this horrific leg injury on a home plate collision. But they battled and were able to win 6-3. Best of 3 series, Hustler. Game 2 Friday, game 3 Saturday in this American Association playoffs where you can pick your own opponent. So nice start here for the Goldeyes, and now they head off to Fargo. I think you mentioned it yesterday. How many championships have they won now total? Because I remember for so long they just had the one, and they hadn't won at Shaw Park. And then since the last 10 years or so, they've rattled off a bunch in the American Association.
Yeah, no, the Goldeyes had, I mean, listen, there's been some of the most incredible evenings at that ballpark for playoff baseball.
Yes.
And hopefully this is the start of another run for the Fish. I mean, they weren't, to be frank, they were playing some ugly ball in that final week of the season. We saw them lose to the Canaries, who didn't even make the playoffs on, I guess, Saturday night. On a gorgeous night at the ballpark, everyone had a good time, except for Rick Forney and the boys in Goldeyes uniforms. That being said, though, Reem, they've got the opportunity to get this thing back here with a win in Fargo. By the way, I know, thank you for the correction. It's not tonight; it's tomorrow and Saturday, as you mentioned. But as I said, I mean, just knowing and being to quite a few of the games and knowing how important Max was to this club, a really, really unfortunate way to get things going on the playoffs, despite the win last night for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. So we will see how that goes, obviously, on Friday. And fingers crossed, maybe we can do a little WST meetup at round 2 of the playoffs next week, because I certainly won't have a fantasy auction next week. And if the team is playing, we will be there. Banjo Bowl preparations continue for the Bombers and the Riders. We're looking forward to catching up with Nic Demski coming up in just a few minutes, Reem. But we do have a little bit, we don't have full clarity as to who will be playing on the weekend, but we did get a pretty good idea about who's being impacted through practice right now. And yesterday, the injury report came out from practice. Mike Miller dealing with an ankle issue. Janarian Grant, who missed the last game with a groin. Malik Clements with a quad, and Theodric Hansen with an Achilles. All, I would say, doubtful to play in the game. And obviously, Mike Miller's loss is huge on a special team side of things. Adam Bighill limited, but Michael Couture, who's dealing with forearm issues, a full participant. And certainly Couture will be a big, very important, I think, to have as much of that Bomber offensive line together in the game against a defensive line, even without Garrett Marino, that can certainly give quarterbacks a tough time in the backfield.
Garrett Marino, yeah, I remember that guy. There was a few times last game where Claros was, running. You saw him make plays with his legs, and it is important to have that cohesive O-line. So we'll wait and see what the injury report is. I mean, they had Bighill on there, but he seems to be a player every game, and we are counting down here to this Banjo Bowl. So I haven't seen too many updates from today. I don't know the situation, but we'll stay tuned for that.
Yeah, obviously the team out in the practice field right around now, so we'll pay attention to some of the guys that are boots on the ground at IG Field with any more updates for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But just in a few minutes, we're going to be talking the win last weekend and a look ahead to Saturday afternoon with Nic Demski of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, I'm seeing in chat, Remo, people have already picked up on this story. One of the all-time Winnipeg Jet 2.0 fan favorites could very well have played his last game in the National Hockey League. You sent me this last night, and there is speculation that Mathieu Perreault, number 85 of the Winnipeg Jets, of course, who played last year for the Montreal Canadiens, could be retiring, hanging it up, and actually moving into working in the media, which would be wonderful. It'd be great to talk hockey with a guy like Mathieu Perreault on this program, considering how well he knows the Winnipeg Jets. But if it is the case, I know there's disappointed Bridget in chat and a number of people that were huge fans of Mathieu Perreault. I think you'll look back at his NHL career, and certainly the highlights, the majority of it played right here in Winnipeg with the Winnipeg Jets, where, as I mentioned, he was a fan favorite and a big part of a number of teams that, were pretty darn good, especially that 17-18 squad.
Okay, so I believe that he has retired here. He's joined this show on TVA with a number of former NHLers, including Guillaume Latendresse, a former Canadiens player. But here it is that it says in the English translation that in the press release that he recently retired from hockey. So they have Steve Bejan, Simon Gagne, Mathieu Perreault. Here it is. Recently retired from hockey. It will be his first experience in the media. So I think there was an announcement before, like earlier today or late last night about this, and maybe there's speculation that it wasn't a full-time thing, but I guess they put in the release, recently retired. And we talked about this when he returned here, and they did the big tribute video. I mean, you think of Mathieu Perreault, I think his longest tenure was in Winnipeg, signed here as a free agent. Ken Wiebe tweeted out, we remember him as Rick called him, Rick Ralph, the human jumper cables. You could put him on any line. The other memorable moment from Mathieu Perreault, the nearly 4-goal game? Was it a 4-goal game?
Yeah, sorry, Gail.
Was that the 5th goal for $1 million?
The 5th goal would have been
Gail
$1 million.
McDonald. She didn't get the $1 million. The Line scored 5, and someone else did. But that was the first time anyone had really come close. No one had a hat trick here for so long. 4 goals was almost unheard of in a game. I know Kappa had a 4-goal game as well recently, but yeah, Perreault, great career. Man, he's only 34. Signed with Montreal last year, but wasn't really a regular in the lineup. And I'm not sure if this, how full time this is going to be, but he's on some show on TVA.
Yeah, listen, we'll certainly reach out and try and get Matthew on the show to talk about his time in Winnipeg. A number of people in chat mentioning, the question, is he the top unrestricted free agent signing in Jets 2.0 history? And I mean, listen, the Jets are not big, have never really been big players in the UFA market. But when you think about the fact that they signed him out of Anaheim and then re-signed Mathieu Perreault, I mean, the vast majority of his career here, and he came here on a UFA deal, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an unrestricted free agent that came here to Winnipeg on Kevin Cheveldayoff's watch and made a bigger impact for a longer period of time than Mathieu Perreault.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of the big free agent signings. This has been a, free agency. It's summer. Olli Jokinen was the other free agent signing. But as far as, long-term deals, Kulikov was one here. But I think it has to be Mathieu Perreault. Was 2014-15 season. I mean, he's 27 years old. That was mostly his prime years here. He spent 7 seasons, 230 points, 455 games, was part of some great teams here with the Jets, the 27-18 legendary Jets team that made it all the way to the conference final that we're still talking about. He was on the Jets team when they made their first playoff appearance too against the Anaheim Ducks. So it was on some great teams, Pro. Great. He was a solid player. I will say this, when I was doing social media for the NHL, nobody celebrated goals like Mathieu Perreault did. He was always, he seemed like the most excited. Every goal was like his first goal. So, and also we went over it in the summer, his hairstyles.
Well, we can't eulogize Mathieu Perreault's time in the National Hockey League with the Winnipeg Jets without getting a hockey DB up and doing a tour through his headshots. I mean, I think we should be doing that right now. And this, for podcast listeners, is one of those moments where if you could just be with us on YouTube to see what's happening on the video portion, it would be that good. But, Perreault, as you mentioned, Reem, he just had so much energy and played with such a love for the game and love for scoring goals and, good things happening for his team. Okay, here we've got the headshots. Is that the best one? That one with this long, straight hair, the mustache and the soul patch, I think might be my favorite, but I know there's a few more. Let's keep rolling through these.
This one. We've done this before, but I don't think it gets old.
It never gets old. It never gets old. And again, if he's retiring right now,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we absolutely need to do this. This one is a little bit more of a caveman look, if you will. The hair's sort of all over the place. He's got the big bushy beard. The one before was almost like he almost looked like he had just been participating in a play, a musical performance of Zorro or something like that, where this one is a little more rough. Like he's just been maybe in the woods for the entire summer and has just shown up back to training camp.
Yeah, long hair, bushy beard. For the podcast listeners, we got, this is the man bun with a shorter beard. This one's pretty
Perreault
solid
was
too.
man bun guy before it was cool to have man buns. And then when he saw everyone else wearing man buns, he ditched it. He was a trendsetter. Make no mistake about it. He was not a follower.
Oh, this is what this is a bit shorter with the little short on the sides, big on top.
Yeah, a bit of a
Even
fade,
shorter beard.
if you will. Bit of the Francais fade, if you will.
I can't, I've had the same haircut basically my whole life. It blows my mind that this guy comes to training camp every year with a new look. That's something That's something I could never do. I could never do that. This is kind of like the other one, but full beard, like the first one.
Full beard, not rolling with the soul patch, the longer hair straight, and just an epic stare right into the eyes. I mean, if you look at that picture for very long, you can almost get hypnotized.
You said Zorro. I was more like bad guy in the Star Wars franchise, and I'm not a Star Wars guy, so I could be off there. Maybe we'll have to do like an Instagram. Oh, this is like younger. Here we go, younger, like
that's fresh-faced, young. Welcome to Winnipeg, Mathieu Perreault.
Yes. There you go. And is that it? Yeah, that's it. Oh, this is really, really young. Crazy.
That's back in the Caps. Let's just do one more quick run through, just quickly through. Caps, Ducks before coming to Winnipeg. Caps.
And then this is last year.
Oh, that's the Habs. That's his Montreal headshot. A little more clean cut. And I will say this. I mean, Perreault has... he's going to have a lot on his hands right now because he has the most beautiful young family. I know his wife's been active on social media for a number of years with, great pictures. I mean, they believe they've got young twins. So Perreault will have plenty of time to spend with the family and hopefully plenty of time to talk NHL on that TVA show. And we'll certainly reach out and see if he has some time to talk to Winnipeg Jet fans here on Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up in the next few weeks. Rio, by the way, I was talking to Jamie Thomas after our draft last night, and they're out in Penticton next week. I'm looking forward to having Jamie jump on the program, and he'll, give us some live reports as far as what's going on with the Jets at the rookie showcase. But as much as it seems sort of slow right now, we're waiting for the Banjo Bowl. At least we've got NFL kickoff tonight. Things are going to be picking up, at least on the ice. We'll see whether anything happens off the ice for the Winnipeg Jets as we get into preseason and obviously training camp. But I know you're fired up, and I guess this year we will have a good chance to see, a few of the young players that the Winnipeg Jets have drafted and signed for the first time out in Penticton at this Young Stars tournament.
Well, they didn't have a development camp. I had major development camp FOMO this summer when seemingly every other team was, and we had nothing here. So this is the first time we'll see. September 16 at 4 p.m. Pacific time, so 6 p.m. The Jets will be taking on the Oilers. I'm sure the prospects will get here. They'll gather. I don't know if they'll be doing any team building exercise, getting to know each other. We might even have our first line reports that we've had. I'm getting
lines. Lines are in.
Can you imagine?
From the morning skate?
Who's going to be tweeting out development camp? Sorry, a Young Stars tournament line rushes. I'm getting really excited. I know summer ending sucks. Obviously, getting colder sucks. But hockey starting up, just the idea of tweeting out lines from the
I love the
camp.
fall. I absolutely love the fall. I mean, fall and spring, to be honest, I think might be my favorite seasons. I mean, I can do without the majority of the Winnipeg winter for obvious reasons. But I mean, I've been saying all week, this week is honestly one of my favorites. We've got some fantasy drafts at night for everyone that's getting ready for the season. Tonight, NFL kickoff. Everyone's 500. Everyone's feeling good about their team. The biggest regular season game of the year here in Winnipeg on Saturday against the Riders. And then a full day of NFL football on Sunday of week 1. It doesn't get much better than this. And the other thing about it, Reem, is that it signifies that hockey is just about back, and we're less than, a couple weeks from getting some preseason action here in Winnipeg at the downtown arena.
Yes, we got to have like an active countdown timer here, because I tweeted it out the other day, NHL Network posting the dates to remember. I'm going to hammer it. They got to put them in your calendar here. Training camp opens the week of September 19th. Unless you're the Ottawa Senators, whose players are seemingly already gathering.
They are so ready to go, the Sens.
Yeah, they're taking off-season champs seriously. Training camp, preseason September 24. Who cares about the global series? The Jets aren't in it. That's on the graphic here. But season opener, October 11th.
16,
so almost a month.
16 days away. Yeah, a month and 3 days from the season opener. So there's lots going on right now. Well, not a lot going on right now, but a lot will be going on coming up. Rookie showcase, training camp, and preseason, as I say, just over 2 weeks away. We'll be all over that, and we'll see what Ken Wiebe has to say. One question I'm going to ask Ken, and if you folks in the chat want to throw in as well, give us your thoughts. A little extra why not question of the day, if you will. Where does Sam Gagner, speaking of lines, where does Sam Gagner start the year? Where's he going to play? I do think he'll have a role on probably the second power play unit. But I am interested. I mean, is he a guy that, that plays with Lowry and Appleton? Is he a guy that, is a veteran presence playing with a guy like David Gustafsson on the fourth line? And I guess the big question is, is a guy like Morgan Barron ready for, potential top 9 work as spot? So you can fill us in the chat, your thoughts on who Sam Gagner might fit well with at the beginning of the season for the Winnipeg Jets, and we would get going in just over a month. All right, we're going to talk Banjo Bowl coming up in just a minute. But I do want to thank and once again welcome our newest sponsor. It is so great to have the guys at Consolidated Supply on. It's especially great when our sponsors are also big supporters and listeners of the show. And I know Joe, Spicy, and Gene over at Consolidated have been longtime listeners, and it's great to have them on. Of course, my pal Chris as well, Chris Buechler. Listen, they've been the artificial turf and irrigation guys in town for decades, as the leaders working with basically all of the golf courses around the city, as well as when it comes to golf carts. They've got it all. If you need a new or used golf cart tricked out, you can head down and see my guy Gene at Consolidated Supply. But they've also got golf carts as all things club car. So utility vehicles for around the warehouse or ranch or farm. You can check out Consolidated Supply for all of their club cart auctions. And listen, if you are doing an event, golf tournament, they've got 2, 4, and 6 passenger options for you for one day or multi-day events. But that's sort of what Consolidated has always been known for. But as they've expanded, they've really gotten into some other neat outdoor things. And I mentioned this yesterday. The outdoor kitchens that they're able to put in on properties right now is absolutely phenomenal. You've got to check out what they've got. And hot tubs as well. It hasn't been easy to get hot tubs. Well, they've got them, and it got some smoking deals on you. So pop down Consolidated Supply. They're at 1395 Niagara Road East. Might want to stick that into your maps, but just sort of off of Fermor, when you get past 59, a quick little turn there, and a beautiful spot. They'll take care of you, and tell the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. Of course, our friends at Vita Health are ready for the upcoming school year and getting back to work, because Vita Health is Winnipeg's always been their leaders when it comes to supplements and beauty products, all natural groceries, and of course, local and organic as well. If you're into local organic produce and grass-fed meats, they've got it all. And of course, a great grab-and-go deli for those of you on the go with delicious and healthy Vita Health snacks, sandwiches, and soups as well. Vitahealth is a great local company. They've been in business since 1936, empowering Manitobans to lead healthy lives for over 85 years. Pop down and see them. One of 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. The guys at Wallace & Wallace have been busy. Of course, you see the fences all around the city. Pretty much anything to do with fencing, go to Wallace & Wallace. But you might not know they are also a leader in garage doors, working with Clopay, the largest garage door manufacturer in the world. And, despite some supply chain challenges in the industry, there's still time before winter to get that new garage door delivered and installed in around 4 weeks. Of course, a new garage door can add up to 4% to the value of your home. And with 161 styles of garage doors to choose from, there's a style that's right for you. Visit them at wallacedoors.com. You can give them a call or pop down and see them in person at their showroom on Lawson Road. And a big thanks to our friends at Aikens Lake for another great season. Couple more weeks on the water for the gang, but they're already getting ready for a big 2023. Find out more online at aikenslake.com on how you can plan an incredible fishing getaway for friends and family or a corporate retreat. And you can also check them out online on all the socials at Aikens Lake. All right. Banjo Bowl, Saturday afternoon. I cannot wait. And I know a guy that's also pretty fired up. His name is Nic Demski, one of the heroes of the Bombers' win last week. Had a chance to catch up with Nick after yesterday's show to discuss the big win on Sunday and look ahead to the madhouse expected on Saturday afternoon. Here's Nic Demski on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Nick, what's up? Congratulations on a big win in Sask on the weekend. How are you?
Appreciate it, man. I'm good. I mean, the spirits are pretty high after that game. So, we just got to get back to business and get ready for the Banjo Bowl coming up.
It was a hell of a football game. What was the feeling on the bench when you guys were down 14-0 early on, and it seemed like there was a lot of swag and confidence amongst the 33,000 packing Mosaic?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about this football team is just we're resilient. So, I mean, we never really get down, all the highs and the lows. We tend to stay pretty even. So, I mean, going down 14-0 like that, I mean, it was just kind of dependent on who wanted to step up and make the plays. So, our offense did a good job of getting our team back in there, and our defense did a good job of stopping them. And yeah, the rest is history.
Well, speaking about stepping up and making plays, I guess you decided that it might have been a good time to make a big play. Your touchdown to get the Bombers on the board and cut the 14-0 lead in half was a huge point in the game. And, the announcers, Dusty and Suter, that were doing the game on TSN, were gushing about the adjustments that you made in the air on that play. Take us through it. It was a huge play, great throw by Zach, and obviously ended up with a convert from Mark Leggio afterwards. How did you all see it unfold?
Yeah, so I mean, that was one of the plays that we game planned this week. Moncrief actually had pretty good coverage on me, despite what happened that play. But he had pretty good coverage. I was running a corner route, and he had outside leverage on me. So I did a swim move about, I think 15, 20 yards down the field in the middle of my route, and then it kind of took me off my angle. So Zach made a great ball, put a lot of air under it, let me run underneath it. And, when I got off my angle and looked back for the ball, I saw that I had to turn to my inside shoulder. So I just made the adjustment and fought him off and went and scored. So that's kind of how it went down.
You've played with Zach for a while now, and I mean, he's had the habit of making absolutely beautiful throws on big plays. I mean, what is it about him that has made him so successful in your mind? And the fact that you've now been together more, I mean, you get to the point as a receiver where you pretty much know how things are going to play out based on all the preparation that you've put in, not just in the week, but over the last few years?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Zach, he's just confident back there. He's seen it all. He's seen old coverages. He's seen new coverages. He sees, he's basically gone up against every coverage that there is out there. So, I mean, he's a confident guy back there, but at the same time, I mean, if there's something he doesn't see or something that he has to extend the play, he does a great job extending the play and scrambling and just making a play and throwing great balls on the run. And I mean, it goes back all the way even to what he did in BC when he was diving in midair and threw the ball to Dalton there. I'm pretty sure who it was. So, he's just a playmaker, and he's a great leader. And yeah, I mean, I love playing with him. So I don't have enough good things to say about him.
That play in the BC game was straight up Mahomesian. I mean,
It
it
was-
was,
it was something else, man.
showtime. And then the other big play, just while we were talking about sort of the technique of your job as a receiver, Dalton Schoen has had an unbelievable rookie season. You can maybe speak to what he's brought to the club, but his touchdown in particular, this is about the second time at least this season where Zach Collaros' bought time has run out to the right, and Dalton Schoen broke off his route, found a spot, and it ended up being 6 for the Bombers. From a receiver's perspective, for fans that maybe haven't played the game before, take us through the thought process when you're on your route, you identify the fact that he's getting rushed and he's no longer where he was, and how you guys react to that, hopefully ending up with a big play.
Yeah, I mean, first off, Dalton, he does a fantastic job. I mean, he's just a consistent pass catcher. And I mean, the other thing about him is, just talking about how much, Zach scrambles and can extend the play. I mean, Dalton's very smart and crafty on how he gets open with those types of plays as well. So, it was funny. We're talking about, how Dalton's, a lot of his big plays are just like on scramble plays where, Zach's just finding them downfield. So, I mean, he does a great job filling out the defense and everything like that. But yeah, he brings a lot of action and a lot of entertainment to our offense, and he fits in quite well because he's definitely a very smart receiver as well. So, he's one of those guys that, if he does make a mistake, and that's a big if he does make a mistake, he's probably only going to make that one time. So, I think that's probably his best trait that he has.
When you guys regardless of who it is, I mean, at what point when you identify the fact that, the quarterback has been pressured, but has rolled out and found some space, how does that change what you guys are doing at that moment in the play as opposed to the way it was drawn up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best part about this offense, though. I mean, we understand as football players that not everything's going to go perfect all the time. So, when that does happen, when Zach does get out of the pocket, it's on us as receivers to find the open space and extend the play and make it to happen still, no matter what. So, I mean, we kind of put that upon each other as a receiver group. So, I mean, everybody kind of understands their role. But at the end of the day, to me, I mean, the scrambling play, like I feel like that just brings so much excitement, when something, goes wrong or something may be off. And as you said, maybe not how it's drawn up, but then all of a sudden, you can go out there and just play backyard football and get a big catch and, sideline toe tap for a touchdown. I mean, it does a lot for your sidelines and just as an offense in general.
Well, those touchdowns in the second quarter were huge to get the Bombers right back in the football game. But I have to ask you about a play that happened in the second quarter that, will not show up as anything special on the stat sheets. But from my perspective, one of the biggest plays in the game was by Mark Leggio. Yeah. Avoiding, like, straight up Barry Sanders juke move to avoid two guys on what would have been a sure punt block. And at 10 points down, if that goes the other way, we could be having a very different conversation play. How did you see it? And what was the reaction when Legs got back to the bench after such a monster play, avoiding what could have been disaster for the Bombers?
Yeah, I mean, I remember him, catching the punt and, everybody, I'm pretty sure on the sideline was holding their breath because we thought that was about to get blocked. And then all of a sudden he scooted out of the way and then still let a booming punt go. So, I mean, it was definitely impressive, man. Like, I know Legs has a little bit of athleticism to him. So, it wasn't a surprise to me, but, I know he's a playmaker. So, he does a good job. He's starting to get a little bit more confidence now. So, I feel like, people are going to start seeing more and more of the true Mark Leggio for more to come this year. But yeah, when that happened, I mean, I jumped up in excitement. I'm pretty sure I was on the bench at the time and ran out on the field and congratulated him because, I haven't seen a play like that live in a minute. So, I mean, it was a great play. And yeah, as you said, it could have been a complete game changer, but, he got it off and did a great job.
Well, I mean, the focus will always be on the game-winning kick or the game-winning points. And I mean, that 55-yarder, I mean, we have to talk about as well. But we can't lose sight of the fact that, that play was, I think, crucial in getting the Bombers back in the game and avoiding a complete turnaround, which big special teams plays inevitably do, especially in close games like you had in the Labor Day Classic. A 55-yarder, you never kicked over 50, goes out there in the most difficult of circumstances. We talk a lot about confidence, and obviously he had to slip up at the end of the Montreal game, which was probably a tough time as he had to sit on it over the course of the bye week. But to come back, kick in that scenario and make it has to be huge for him personally. And it seemed like the team always had the support and the confidence of him, but it's a whole nother story when you execute and come through in a situation like that for his football team.
No doubt. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I know Legs took it a little bit to heart too, what happened in Montreal when, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you kind of look back at what happened, and you look back at the film, and I mean, we should have never put him in that situation to begin with. So, you know, you can't really put that all on him, but you know, I know he's still a competitor, and he still took that to heart, and you know, he kept grinding, and as I said, you know, each week, you know, you kind of see a little bit more confidence from Legs this year. So, I mean, you know, he did a great job blocking in for a big time moment. And, you know, the way that kick went through the uprights, I mean, that probably could have made it from 60. So, you know, he definitely has a boot on him. So, you know, as I said, you're going to start seeing more and more of the true Mark Leggio this year for sure.
And I mean, we can't talk about the win without talking about the guys on the defensive side of the football. I mean, listen, credit to Saskatchewan. I mean, they had a great start to the game, and I thought Cody Fajardo played his ass off. I mean, he did have a really strong game. And yet there is that Blue Bomber defense giving up one single point in the second half.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the best part about playing on this team is that, you know, the defense is always going to come through for us. So, you know, it's funny because when was it? I think it was like the third quarter. I started kind of saying on the sidelines, you know, like, oh, we need a turnover, you know, I feel turnover coming soon. And then all of a sudden, you know, right in the nick of time, literally, you know, Nick Hallett comes across the middle and gets that tipped ball and intercepts it at a crucial point in that game. So, I mean, you know, the defense is always going to have our back. So that's what I love about this team. You know, all three phases. That was all three phases type of win. And, you know, Saskatchewan came out there and they're a good football team, but, you know, we did what we had to do to get more points than they did.
Well, another win for the Bombers. They stay on top in the West, and it's right back at it against the Roughriders on Saturday afternoon. You know, I'm interested, Nick. I mean, you go through so much tape, so much preparation going into game one of the series. I mean, obviously you're going to go back over the tape from the game last weekend, but is the practice week for game two, how different, if at all, is it from week one, knowing that, you know, you're very familiar with the opponent, and if anything, it's probably rest, R&R, and recovery to get ready to do it all again against the same opponent?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a bit of both, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword that way. Just because, I mean, you know, as we were saying before, it's like, you know, you're going to watch the exact same film. You're going to, you know, have that exact same feeling. And, you know, so it's really a matter of, are they going to come out and play, you know, the same defense that they did last week, or, you know, they're going to come out and switch it up on us. So that's kind of, you know, how you game plan that and how you get ready and prepare for the week. But, you know, the double-edged sword to me is like, you know, do you spend more time in the film room, or do you spend more time trying to get rest and recovery? You know, it's like a perfect balance that you got to find. And I mean, I think Ocean and everybody here does a great job at kind of getting us mentally prepared, and then at the same time physically prepared as well. So, you know, it's definitely a little bit different when you do these back-to-back games, but at the same time, you know, it's all about balance and how you want to prepare for the game.
Nic Demski of the Blue Bombers joining us. Banjo Bowl Saturday afternoon, sold out, but if you can manage to get your hands on a ticket, make sure you are there. You know, discipline has been such a hallmark of your club. I don't know if you can say, I mean, what is it about Mike O'Shea, and how has he been so successful in instilling that amongst you and the men in that locker room, as opposed to what we've seen game after game throughout the league this year on a number of teams that, you know, don't have discipline at your level? And how did that cheap shot from Garrett Marino go over on the sidelines on Zach Caleros late in the game?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I guess I was on the field during it, so I didn't even know about it until after the game. I think I was doing an interview with Derek Taylor, and he asked me about it, and I had no idea. So, I mean, I don't think it was really talked about too much until after, when everybody kind of saw the video. But, yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Zach's okay. So, you know, I'm happy about that. And that's kind of the only comment I have about that situation. But, yeah, you know, with Osh going back to
It's the discipline. Yeah,
the discipline.
exactly.
There we go. Sorry, the discipline. I think it just kind of goes down to like, we're a very tight knit team, and we want to play for each other. So when you kind of take bonehead penalties or dumb penalties and penalties that you don't need to take, that you're kind of putting yourself ahead of the team. So nobody wants to do that here. We all want to play for each other, and we all want to play smart and high IQ football. So I think that's kind of where it stems from.
How would Osh react to a player in civvies taking a 10-yard penalty in a crucial point in the game?
Oh man, I don't know if the player would still be here, honestly, but I don't want to talk on Osh's behalf. But
yeah, I kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling that might be the circumstance there.
Nic, you've been on both sides of this rivalry, and thankfully for Bomber fans, are now on the blue side of things. I mean, it was incredible atmosphere, but this season it seemed, and I'll get you to speak on it, how the energy of Bomber fans, the support for you guys, the growing crowds over the season have been, and what you're expecting IG Field to be like on Saturday afternoon when that place is packed and these two teams go at it again.
Yeah, I already know what it's going to be like. I mean, it's going to be crazy. I mean, it was sold out a couple games ago against, I think, or which one? Montreal, maybe. I think it was sold out. So it was loud. It was, a lot of energy. The atmosphere is great, but Banjo Bowl, there's just something different about a day game on a Saturday afternoon, especially when you get some people from Riderville coming over here too. So I mean, it's definitely a friendly rivalry, but there's definitely a lot of energy in the air and a lot of aggression between both clubs. So I mean, it'll be amazing. I can't wait. I'm sure as soon as the ball gets kicked off, I'm sure the crowd is just going to be insane, and they'll probably be like that for 4 hours straight. So, I don't expect anybody to have a voice in Winnipeg after this game.
they'll be that an hour or two before the game, I think, outside the stadium before they head in. All hands on deck for the game. And just quickly on the game, I mean, it wasn't the start that you guys wanted last week. How important is a better start and to take advantage of that crowd and to get out against your arch rivals when we kick off Saturday afternoon?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, well, anytime when you go to a hostile environment like that, I mean, it's going to be tough. Like, obviously you want everything to be picture perfect, but that's kind of what we talk about out here, no matter what situation. I mean, that's a situation that we just got to deal with and handle. And, we got to make it perfect. We got to make it a good situation. So, yeah. I mean, bringing them here into this hostile environment, now we have those cards in our favor. I think just taking that momentum, and if we could ride that momentum all game, I think the game will definitely go in our favor if we start hot that way. So, it's definitely about how you start the game. But I think personally, one of the best things that we do here over here with the Bombers is how we finish games. So, it would be awesome to start fast, but at the end of the day, I mean, we got to finish better as well.
Well, I think everyone would certainly agree with you on that. Now, listen, the numbers speak for themselves with the amount of procedure penalties teams have taken in IG Field before. But as a Winnipeg guy that's played in this game on both sides of things, how impactful can the fans be on Saturday afternoon? And what do you and your teammates want to see from the 33,000 that'll be packing that stadium?
So I don't want to see anything. I just want to hear it all. So, as long as you guys want to scream, that's completely fine with me, as long as the offense isn't on the field. As long as their offense is on the field, I mean, yell whatever you got to yell. Just, if we could get a bunch of procedure penalties for them, that'd be amazing. So, yeah, I mean, the fans do a great job of doing that. I'm pretty sure, like last year at Banjo Bowl, I'm pretty sure they had like 9 or 10 procedures and offsides and delays the games, I think, like in total. So, I mean, that right there, that's 50 yards and penalties. So, I'll take that 10 out of 10 times. So, the fans do a great job.
Well, Nic, you and the fellas have been doing a great job so far. Cannot wait for the game on the weekend. Always appreciate your time. Congrats on the season so far. And good luck on the weekly goal of going 1-0 against the Riders on the weekend.
There we go. Appreciate it, man.
All right, great stuff with Nic Demski. Saturday afternoon, Banjo Bowl. It is on. Hopefully, we'll see many of you WSTers there. Make sure to say hi. I know my friends from Not AutoCorp will be well represented at the Banjo Bowl. Great supporters of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and everything Winnipeg. But most importantly for you, You know, Not AutoCorp is the number one place to start any search for a new vehicle in the city of Winnipeg. It's pretty simple, gang. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? Anytime you pop down and see them at Waverly and McGillivray, you'll see an incredible selection of vehicles on the lot. Many luxury vehicles, but, many others as well. But I think what is the most eye-catching when you get there, certainly it was for me, was the array of Teslas, and they have been the Tesla leader in Winnipeg for years. And they've also got a new Tesla experience program. And like many of you, intrigued by the new vehicles, but wondering how it's different to, drive an electric car as opposed to a traditional vehicle. Well, Not AutoCorp's got the Tesla experience program, which will take you through every aspect of owning and operating an electric vehicle to see whether it's right for you. Whether it's a Tesla, whether it's electric, or whether it's one of the other great cars on the lot, pop down and see the experts at Not. And if there is a particular vehicle that you've got your heart set on, let them know the make and model. They'll source it, get it here to Winnipeg, and get you and your family into it at the best possible price. Pop down and see our friends at Not AutoCorp, Waverly and McGillivray, and check them out online at not.ca, as well as the amazing Winnipeg Car Lab, also on the lot down at Not AutoCorp. Well, NFL season is here, and the gang at Royal Sports is ready. I guess the most important thing for people to know on what's going on at Royal is the final tent sale of the year is this weekend. So pop down and hit it before the Banjo Bowl on Saturday, or all Sunday as well. Listen, it's the amount of merch that Royal has, anyone that's been there knows, but the tent sales are where you get the best deals around. Thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes and other pieces of merchandise on for a minimum of 50% off. And of course, it's NFL season, and you can see right now all the new lids are in. Whatever your favorite team is, the new 2022 merch is in at Royal Sports, so get on down there in time for opening weekend while your team is still 0-0 and the options for your club are still bright. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, your merchandise headquarters. And this weekend, don't miss it. Another incredible tent sale Saturday and Sunday at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. I know there was some talk about a suit show. I saw some challenges in the chat as to when we'll do it. Well, I can't wait to do the next suit show, to be perfectly honest, because I got the new duds from F Apparel. If you guys are thinking that you need to upgrade the wardrobe heading into the fall and winter, especially coming out of the pandemic where you probably barely worn a collar, never mind a suit, F Apparel's the place to go, guys. I went down a few weeks ago, got measured up, picked the fabrics, how I wanted it to look, got some tips from Andrew and his great staff there, and a few weeks later had a great new suit to wear to the wedding and for our next shoot show here on WST. Custom suits beginning at $400 at F Apparel. Pop down and see them at 190 Smith Street, or check out everything they've got going on online at fephapparel.com. And as I said, I think we've got a F customer coming up right after he probably chugs a couple of liters of Culligan water. We'll get to that later on. And hey, a big shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend. The work on the new greens on 7 and 15 are underway right now for next season. And again, a congratulations to Breezy and all the volunteers on an amazing hosting job for the Canadian Women's Mid-Am and Senior Championships last week. Find out more at breezybend.ca and how Breezy can become your golfing home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top public courses. All right, let's get Weber in here. Lots to chop up with Ken. This NFL kicks off tonight. Jets camp just a couple of weeks away. And of course, the Young Stars happening as well. Let's get Ken Wiebe in here after, I guess, no real golf to talk about today, Ken. The tour winding down a little bit.
Yes, sir, Huss. We can talk about all of the great pairs of Vans that I've been able to get at those Royal tent sales over the years. Feels like I should be able to upgrade the closet after COVID here, perhaps. Tour is winding down. Had a great day at Pine Ridge yesterday, and we will be heading to Hecla with our friends Dennis Bayak and Timmy Campbell tomorrow. I haven't played Hecla in a number of years. Should be a lot of fun. But I, like you, excited about the NFL season around the corner. I'm happy to report to you that in one of my fantasy pools, I was able to snag Patrick Mahomes for the QB1 position. You will not be shocked to know that I have Tom Brady and Joe Burrow as the QB1, QB2 combo in my other pool. So excited about that season around the bend. It's an awesome time on the calendar, Huss, right? We got the Jays are in a playoff push. We got NFL happening. You got some college football happening. Hockey just around the corner. On the amateur scene, I think the Bison's got rolling. We got the Goldeyes in the playoffs for baseball. I know it was a fun day at Shaw Park for many yesterday as the Goldeyes took game 1 in that series. And outside of that, we're still waiting for a couple of shoes to drop. Other than, I know you'll appreciate this from all of our talks over the years. It was nice to type out the words human jumper cables today. I still can't remember if that was Rick Ralph's invention or mine. I think we're going to co-share that one, but Mathieu Perreault hanging up the blades to get into the media, which we know he'll do a great job at. Huss, he was always a great quote. We love that quote about him that Rick or I came up with. I mean, this is a guy who, let's be honest, Huss, it's the best free agent signing the Jets have had since being back. Such a value deal, that 3-year, $9 million deal after he was not qualified by the Anaheim Ducks ended up being one of the shrewdest moves the Jets have made since coming back to Winnipeg.
No, it's a great point, and we were talking about it earlier on. I don't think there's anything really close when you think of the fact that he came here, re-signed, played the majority of his career here, and started here as an unrestricted free agent. It did get a lot of people thinking about another Duck that is available right now in Sonny Milano. We may as well get right into the Jets off the bat, Ken, because, obviously we'll talk about Sam Gagner in a minute. But as presently constructed, I think there's still a pretty clear need to move, make some room on the blue line and potentially bring another forward in. And, but again, there's some salary cap room for maybe picking up a guy for nothing, just cap space. Do you think anything will happen before we get to camp, or will this be a waiting game closer to the season to see if there's a way the Winnipeg Jets can improve their look going into the year?
Yeah, Milano's an interesting study, right? This is a guy who has some solid underlying numbers. We know he is a good shooter. He can put the puck in the net. And if we're looking at the Jets' needs, yes, we know Morgan Barron and Jansen Harkins and guys like that will be in the mix for that third line left wing job. But for me, Milano is a guy who makes a lot of sense. So that line would be looking for more of a natural finisher. I think Milano is a guy that could fill that type of a role. I do think that he's going to have a contract in place before training camp starts. But Huss, we've talked all summer long about the lower tiered free agents. Look at what Evgeny Svechnikov just had to take a 2-way deal with the San Jose Sharks, who were one of the worst teams in the NHL last year. So should be a great opportunity for Svechnikov. But there's still a bunch of guys that I think are capable NHL players who are now down to the point where, would you prefer to take a PTO? And then if things go well, maybe you still leave yourself open to another opportunity, or do you just sign a 2-way deal with an NHL team and kind of hope for the best? That's something that we're all waiting for. There's like I said, there's some capable players still on that list of guys, Evan Rodriguez, we've talked about all summer as well. These are guys that are going to be able to help NHL teams. They have experience, but they're still kind of young in the bigger picture. So it's been a bit surprising that it's taken a bit longer for those guys to find deals, but either they're being very patient or the market is a little bit different than what they were anticipating in terms of hoping for longer range deals. But I still believe that the Jets are, again, I'm also curious, will the Jets go with the PTO route with a couple of guys here as well, or are they going to wait and see? Huss, we've talked about the cap space element, and I wrote about it today on my story at Sportswire. Having cap space is a great luxury, but if you're a team that's on the bubble, you need to have that player in place to help you from game one. So I understand completely the Jets don't want to be strapped for cash or be right up against the ceiling right now, and they do have some wiggle room and flexibility, but I think their roster still needs an upgrade. So if they can find a guy that can help them, from game 1 to game 82, I'm pretty sure they're going to go out and make a move of that nature, whether it's in free agency or a trade. But the other thing too, at what point does this, staring contest, we see somebody blink? There's a lot of teams still looking to shed some salary. Are the prices for those players that could be on the market, about to go down as we get towards training camp too, because this is a time of year, Huss, where teams find out, well, that guy actually injured himself in training, or maybe he's not ready to go until games 10 or 20, and all of a sudden there's a need at a specific position. And that may be where you get the logjam start to be separated or alleviated in this case for the Winnipeg Jets, who still have to move a defenseman before October 14th, or preferably quite a bit before that.
Yeah, I'd say if we were doing a draft of NHL GMs to stock a squad for a staring contest, Chevy would be an early pick. I mean, I think Chevy has the patience and can basically wait guys out as much as any. But I do wonder whether that's happening right now and they're just waiting for their price, knowing that they have some options. Or to your earlier point, the way the market has sort of presented itself over the course of the last few months, and not necessarily the free agent market, but the trade market, and just how little return teams are getting for players like a Dmitry Kulikov that just got traded for nothing last week. You wonder if they're waiting it out, knowing that as opposed to trading a guy and getting pretty much nothing for him, I mean, the worst case scenario is you lose a guy on waivers that you were going to trade anything for nothing, and at least you still have their rights. I mean, how do you see that shaking out? Why do you think we are where we are?
That's a great question. Like I said, I think we've talked about this a lot, and we don't know the answer because not a lot of owners are standing up and saying, guess what, there's a fire sale here. But how many teams are not going to be cap ceiling teams this year? How many are going to be closer to the floor? That's what we can't seem to get a very good handle on. And what is the real impact of COVID on those attendance numbers, and maybe some of those teams that aren't really going all in on the compete level and might be on the the tankathon type of experience here. Are those teams going to be comfortable spending $5 million on a forward where they could have a guy for the league minimum, right? So, man, it's a tough time to be a general manager because, man, a lot of teams are still trying to attract talent, but there's just not a lot of windows to add players. And you want to leave yourself, like we talked about earlier, the flexibility to be able to add a high-end guy at the trade deadline as your cap space accumulates over the course of the season. But, man, to me, I mean, we talked about this so much, and I mean, I understand why people are feeling a little bit leery or, confused about the summertime. But I mean, someone suggested that I was being optimistic in my column today, Huss. I mean, do you think it's optimistic to think the Jets are going to be better than Arizona and Chicago in the Central? I don't. And how I wrote it was, I mean, Colorado is the gold standard. We know this. Colorado is the Stanley Cup champion. Yes, they've had a couple of blows to the roster, but they're still a more than capable team. They are the gold standard. Are you willing to say, is it a lead pipe lock on the Coolbet Lines for any of the other teams to be for surely in the playoffs? I mean, let's go through them, Huss. St. Louis, very good team. I would bet on St. Louis, but Jordan Binnington is coming off a knee injury after a year where he struggled and lost the starting job to Ville Husso. So to me, there's a bit of a question mark around the goaltending there. I think Binnington probably bounces back fine, but I mean, they're not a lock to be, certainly not to be second. They'll probably be a playoff team. After that, Minnesota looks good, but they're still a team that has some question marks, and they haven't had any playoff success in recent memory. Nashville, solid team, but outside of Saros and Roman Josi and some of the talent that bounced back last year, man, I mean, they've got some questions around their team. And then you have Dallas. Dallas has a new head coach. Jake Ottinger had a great year, but all we've been talking about Dallas for the last 3 years is that they don't score enough. Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz had unbelievable years, Huss. But again, are you willing to say they're a guaranteed playoff team or that they're guaranteed to be better than Winnipeg? I mean, I don't think it's being optimistic. I think it's being realistic. I think 2 through 6 is wide open in the Central Division. And that's why I don't think it's a fait accompli that the Jets are all of a sudden going to be terrible next year. I mean, they missed the playoffs by 8 or 9 points. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers missed 20 games last year, Huss. I know you were watching his line very closely last year. I think Nikolai Ehlers gets 40 goals this year if he's healthy. He's guaranteed to get 30 basically, and should probably get 40 if his minutes increase and he's on the first power play. I mean, is that not worth 3 or 4 wins? I mean, I don't know. I mean, and this is the other part. Vegas Golden Knights are a very good hockey team, Huss, right? They had a lot of injuries last year. They missed the playoffs. Do we expect them to miss again? I don't expect them to miss again. So that means you got to knock two teams out.
Speaking of goaltending, though, hold on a second. Sure. I mean, if we're gonna say we don't know what's up with St. Louis because of their goaltending, I will double that for Vegas. I mean, I was talking to Gary the other day, and I'm like, "Hey, man, who are your goalies on opening night?" And he's like, "Well, probably Logan and Hutch." And I'm like, "Hutch? Like, you mean as in Michael Hutchinson? Like he's the guy going forward?" And listen, I had a little bit of fun with that, but I mean, like for a team that went from Lehner and Fleury, arguably the best 1-2 punch, to where they're at right now, I mean, is there a bigger question mark in net in the entire league than Vegas right now?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously got Aiden Hill to supply a little bit of depth.
Good point.
But I mean, they also have Jack Eichel fully healthy for the first time in a number of years. So I'm expecting there to be a significant bounce back in Vegas, regardless of the moves they've had to make and the question marks in goal. But I mean, Huss, that means there's two teams, Winnipeg and Vegas, who expect to be in the playoffs. That means you're knocking out two teams that were in last year at a bare minimum. So that's not easy to do either. And there's probably a couple other teams that felt like they're kind of on the verge. So, hey, I'm not saying the Jets are guaranteed to be a playoff team, but I'm pretty sure they're not guaranteed to be, 29th to 32nd next year either. So that was sort of the tone that I took. I mean, hey, let's be honest. I mean, the column that I wrote was about assessing the risks of running it back. And make no mistake, there are risks associated with not making changes to the core. And we've been talking about this for months. I mean, this isn't just a one-year deal. I mean, if the Jets have miscalculated their evaluation, this doesn't just impact this year. It impacts next year and beyond, because those winds of change that we expected to be blowing through this summer will be blowing very strongly either at the trade deadline or next summer. So I also think that these guys have a lot of proud players who didn't like how it went last year. And I would say at the top of that list is Connor Hellebuyck. And again, I understand the analytics and the underlying numbers supported Hellebuyck on a lot of fronts, and he faced way too much rubber from way too many dangerous areas. And if the Jets don't get their structure figured out, Huss, it doesn't matter if Connor Hellebuyck plays the role of Superman. But to me, Hellebuyck is going to be having a massive year ahead. And that's another thing that can push a team to a playoff spot. Again, I'm not here to say the Jets are a front runner or a leading contender, but I think they're definitely in the mix for a wild card spot or better.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, speaking of those Coolbet lines, I mean, when the books do release, odds, division, but make the playoffs numbers, I'm sure it'll be plus money on the Jets to make the playoffs. I mean, I'm sure what the books will say is they're more likely to miss than to make right now based on where they are right now. And everyone can make their own decisions, that way going forward. But to me, a lot of it, fairly or unfairly, is on the shoulders of the new head coach and Rick Bowness. I had this conversation with Mike yesterday, and I'm interested in your thoughts, Ken. I mean, I know the guys, we've heard everything has just been the media blowing things out of proportion, and there's no issues within the club and the locker room. I don't particularly believe that. And based on that, I'll ask you, is Rick Bowness, with all that's expected for him to, be a positive influence, is his bigger task off the ice or on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, for me, Huss, it's a combination, because the buy-in happens both on the ice and off, right? Because you have to have the belief first and foremost of the plan that is being implemented. It's super interesting. I mean, Rick Bowness is very much an old school guy with a new school mentality. And I would say in a lot of ways, Huss, he's I think I would sort of compare it to like having like that Joe Torre kind of like approach. He's a guy that is definitely going to, have both feet in and dig right in, but he's also going to delegate to a certain degree. So to me, Huss, the other things we've been talking about a lot are the power play and the penalty kill. Scott O'Neill, I believe, is going to run the penalty kill. Brad Lauer will have a pretty firm hand on the power play, and Rick Bowness will be contributing in all areas. So you have to have a buy-in, not just for Rick Bowness. You got to have a buy-in for the entire staff, the entire plan. And I think that's what training camp is going to be about for the Jets. I mean, I know there have been some, lots of reports. I mean, we've talked about this before. Having not been in the room for over 2 years, it's hard to have a real pulse on what's happening in there. And when teams lose, of course, it's not going to be all roses and unicorns in the room. So what that means in the big picture, I mean, winning solves everything, Huss. So this group needs to start showing they can win, that they believe in the plan, and that they can formulate a game plan that is sustainable. something that they can win with. That doesn't mean I heard someone talk about this on the golf course the other day. Oh, the Jets are going to play a boring style of hockey because Rick Bowness is coming in. Look at how Dallas played. Oh, that is not true. I mean, the Jets have high energy players with a high skill level. They're not going to be a boring team to watch, but they're going to have to be a heck of a lot better when it comes to defending and checking. I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, we're not going to see the Jets try to win games 7-6. No, that's not the case. But we're not going to see a ton of 1-0 and 2-1 games either. This is a team that has to check first, and then when they get to the fun zone, that's when the creativity happens. And that's something the Jets really struggled with, Huss, in terms of the balance with the risk-reward elements and all of those things. I mean, I know there's lots of people who'd like to see them just open it up, but that's not how you win when it matters. Playing wide open style, you can score your way into the playoffs. You can't win your way through 16 wins in the playoffs by playing, up-tempo hockey and not paying attention to details when it comes to checking. So back to the original question. I mean, Rick has challenges on both fronts, but I also think he has players who don't want to have a repeat performance of what happened last year. And I know we've talked about Stastny and Scheifele a lot, but I think something that I was talking about with someone this week, let's not forget Neil Pionk and one of the most soft-spoken guys on the team last year, when he spoke in the week leading up to things, he talked about the importance of looking in the mirror and being better. And I think Neil Pionk is a prime candidate for a bounce-back season. And if Neil Pionk gets back to playing the way that he did the 2 prior seasons when he was the Jets' best defenseman, that's going to lead to a couple more victories and points in the piggy bank, if you will. And if Neil Pionk is thinking that way, you can be sure there's probably 16 or 18 other guys thinking in a similar manner. Now, again, it only matters if all of them can do that and achieve that goal, both individually in terms of their games and collectively. But the fact that a lot of people went home unhappy, Huss, there's a lot to be said for that. And I know we've often talked about the Calgary Flames comparison. I mean, there's one big difference between the Flames rebound and what the Jets are hoping to do. The Flames went out and got Blake Coleman, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. The Jets didn't bring in a Blake Coleman, at least not to this point. But what they do have in common with those teams is that a couple of their star players needed to be a whole lot better, Johnny Gaudreau included, and they have the foundational piece in the pipes. The Flames had Markstrom, who was hurt quite a bit during the Canadian division season. He had a Vezina-like kind of year last year. And the Jets obviously have Connor Hellebuck, who would be spoken in the same type of breath as Markstrom when it comes to the best goalies in the Western Conference. But other than that, the biggest thing that changed with the Flames, they got committed to defending, but they also had their star players have career years because you score more if you check better and you're not chasing the puck in your own zone for 30 to 48 seconds at a time.
Yeah, a lot to handle from that last trip to the buffet. I don't even know where I start with that, but I'll say this. When it comes to Bonus and the challenges right now that he's got, both creating a new culture and a winning culture and a culture that, everyone is buying in and proud and happy to be here. The one thing I'll say, and I'll see what you think on this, is I think where so many of those key players are in their contracts, knowing that the end is near, maybe allows Rick Bowness a little bit more opportunity to really be the guy that goes in, that makes his decisions. And because I kind of do feel that with the way the Jets committed to players like Scheifele, like Wheeler, all those long-term deals, that in a lot of ways, I mean, as much as Paul Maurice could try and do things differently, you knew when push came to shove, as much power as he had, and of course he ended up having to leave himself, that the players would always sort of win out. Is that different now, knowing that there's 2 years left on these deals, that could be potential changes at some point this season or next season, and that Rick Bowness and this coaching staff very likely might outlast many of these players that have been the cornerstones of the franchise for the last decade?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? I mean, because of his age, Rick Bowness, there's no guarantee he's here beyond the 2 years either. But at the same time, I mean, this is a young man at that age. I mean, he's vibrant, he loves hockey, and he oozes passion. So, you're right. I mean, there's a good chance that Rick will outlast some of the players, if not the good chunk of the majority of them, for sure. But the other thing about that is, the new sheriff in town mentality is very simple. I mean, the Jets are not rebuilding. They're trying to win on the fly. They believe in the core that they have here. And I think they'll still augment that core before, either the season starts or the season gets rolling. But having said that, Huss, I mean, there's also incredibly high pressure and demands on those players with expiring contracts in 2 seasons, whether those players are interested in sticking around or potentially going elsewhere. I mean, you know what people don't want to be doing heading into the last year before free agency is having a dud of a contract year where you struggle in both your own end and offensively. I mean, this is very simple. In hockey, if you win and you produce, you're going to get paid. So there's a lot of motivation on a number of levels. A, the frustration for not meeting or failing to hit expectations last season, personally and as an organization. And secondly, those players know what's at stake for them, both when it comes to the future contract negotiations and how they're viewed as players, Huss. I mean, we've talked about this a lot too. I mean, this is you're not just auditioning for the Winnipeg Jets. You're auditioning for other teams. And if you want a team to make a $8 to $10 million investment in you as a player, or even if it's a $5 million investment per season, you don't want to have question marks around whether you're a good teammate or whether you're good in the room, or if you're a responsible two-way player. I mean, these guys want to be viewed as the best players in the NHL. So to me, I think there's tons of internal motivation that probably, maybe usurps the questions about whether or not the coach is going to be there longer than you or not. But I think you're still sort of funneling towards the same idea that there's a lot of urgency both for Rick Bowness as a coach and for these players as both individuals and a collective in terms of not wanting to be viewed as underachievers, Huss. I mean, 2018 is a long time ago. And in 2018, those players got within 7 wins of the Stanley Cup, and they have not sniffed that level since. And we know there's a lot of guys that are, Blake Wheeler also, he's talked about it, being closer to the end of his career than well closer to the end than the beginning. I mean, these guys are highly motivated individuals. They don't want to underperform as a group. And I expect them to be a lot better this year. I mean, does that translate into a playoff spot or something else? I mean, we won't know that until they start playing. But I don't think motivation will be an issue whatsoever with this group. And I don't think any disharmony or any potential conflict or fracturing will be a factor either, because Rick Bowness is going to address all those things when training camp starts. I mean, when training camp starts and you're the guy that's playing 7 minutes or 9 minutes, there's always going to be somebody who wishes they were playing more. But I don't see, a lack of unity as anywhere close to one of the higher levels of concern for Rick Bowness or his coaching staff. But again, the proof will be in the pudding, right? It'll be pretty apparent early on if this is a group that A, gets along, and B, buys in to the type of game required in order to achieve success.
Listen, I hope you're right on everything that you just said. I legitimately do. But man, that's a lot to put on a coach. I mean, when you look at the way, and I mean, we can talk about last season, but I mean, you said it. I mean, this team hasn't sniffed anything since being there since 2018. We've seen the direction of this team go over the last number of years, concluding with that disappointing campaign leading into this past offseason. And they haven't reloaded. They haven't really done almost anything other than lose a couple players. And we'll get to adding Sam Gagner in a minute. And as much as I'm optimistic about the effect that Bowness can have come in, man, that's a lot to put on the shoulders of a brand new head coach.
Yeah, so I mean, sorry, just so that I'm clear, I don't think it's only on the coach. I mean, it's ultimately the players are the ones who are playing. I mean, for sure, Rick Bowness has to have the plan.
For sure, but it's been on the players for the last few years, and here we are. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that is what's different. For sure. Like, I'm not sure these guys are going to come in being completely different guys this year. Some of them, I'm sure we'd love that to be the case, but is that realistic? And if they're potentially the same guys, then you have a great coach that can come in and, do a few things. But what we seem to be asking and expecting of Rick Bowness, if this team is to be a playoff team, I guess from where I stand right now, is a hell of a lot. As I said, get your Jack Adams futures on Rick Bowness right now if you think this team's going to do it, because listen, as opposed to where they were last year and next year, if this team is going to be a playoff team as presently constructed, that'll be a hell of a coaching job by Rick.
For sure, Huss. But I mean, some of this will come down to usage, right? And some of it will come down to, again, like I just said before about Nikolai Ehlers. Nikolai Ehlers at 26 years old is in the prime of his career. He's coming off a year where he had 56 points in 62 games. I mean, You can't guarantee a player is going to stay healthy, but I think a bump in 2 minutes per game of ice time for Nikolai Ehlers and getting onto the top power play unit for the first time basically in his career on a full-time basis. Yes, he filled in when Mark Scheifele was hurt, but let's not kid ourselves. Nikolai Ehlers has not had first-line power play time in his time with Winnipeg, and that will change this year. I mean, that Nikolai Ehlers is one of the best producers per 60 in the NHL. So I think that's worth something. I mean, could we see a bump like we saw with Jason Robertson last year? I don't think that's out of the question for Nikolai Ehlers. But I'm not just putting it on Ehlers. I mean, Ehlers is one cog in the wheel. The other part's us too. If we're talking about incorporating guys like Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg, if Samberg plays the way they did in his NHL games, I mean, he's going to bring an element of bite and physical nature along with mobility and puck moving and defending. And he's got a little bit of snarl to his game. Ville Heinola, if he's in the lineup on a regular basis, which we expect him to be, he's a guy that is a good puck mover. And as long as he can check adequately, I mean, that's got to be an improvement. I mean, Brendan Dillon, we've talked about him a lot. I mean, he's going to have a second year with the Jets under his belt. I think that both Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon, even though they're outgoing personalities, I think knowing where the Jets are as a franchise and knowing where they are at with their own contract status as veteran players, they're going to have a bigger voice this year when it comes to leadership. Pierre-Luc Dubois had a great year last year. He had a bit of a cold spell late. Can he eliminate the cold spell and take his game to the next level? I mean, I don't think it's out of the question to think that those things are going to happen, but the Jets still are going to need more production from complementary offense from their bottom six forwards. They didn't have enough of that last year. But ultimately, Huss, we both agree on one thing. The Jets need to defend a lot better, and if they make life easier on Connor Hellebuyck, we're going to see Connor Hellebuyck put up Vezina-like numbers. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that, but that's a big if, and you're counting on a lot of things going well. And we also know the other part of the equation. Not everyone on the Jets is going to have a career year like they did last year, right? So Neil Pionk had a step back that we weren't expecting. So can you get Neil Pionk and Josh Morrissey playing effectively at the same time? I think you can. And the one thing I mentioned in the column today, I know people love Dylan DeMello with Morrissey. I think we're going to see some of Neil Pionk and Josh Morrissey playing together as partners this year. And I think that's something that can help both players, because what I know, Huss, is that a couple of years ago when the Jets added, they were looking to have those guys play as a pairing, but they haven't really done that with much regularity other than a couple of short spells over the years. And I think that both those guys can play off one another and be very effective as a pairing. But then what are you doing with the other pairings? Is it Schmidt and Heinola? Is it, is DeMello in that mix? I mean, Brendan.
Okay, I love where you're going with this. Let's just cut to the chase. Ken Wiebe, right now, it's September the 8th.
Yeah.
Opening night is just over a month away, Ken, and obviously this is subject to change, but right now, who are the 6 defensemen playing for the Winnipeg Jets on opening night in the lineup on the ice?
Well, that's why I like Pionk with Morrissey. So, okay, those are two locks you can take to the Coolbet Lines. Brendan Dillon, his part, he's going to be playing on the right side, which he did a bit last year. And I'm going to put Brendan Dillon I'm going to put him right now with Dylan Samberg on the left side. And that is going to leave you Nate Schmidt on the right side with Ville Heinola. Again, this is not a knock on Dylan DeMello or Logan Stanley. I think those would be the 6 that you would start with. There's a possibility, again, too. Does Rick Bowness want to use 2 veterans together in a shutdown pairing? Maybe you have, like, Dylan and Schmidt actually were an effective pairing together for quite a bit of time last year. But now you're asking, you're not going to probably play Heinola with Pionk. You've seen Heinola play with Morrissey on occasion, but Brendan Dillon, the right side is not his natural position. He did it, I think, adequately last year at times. But here's the problem, Les. This has been the problem for the entire summer. I think the Jets have got plenty of action on Brendan Dillon, but they don't want to move Brendan Dillon. He's the guy that they don't have enough of, the guy that can be mobile and tough and physical. Like, they have a bunch of guys that are in the, medium to undersized category, some of whom are making a lot of money. So, it's going to be super interesting to see. Those are my predictions. I would certainly put them in pencil as of right now. But as I've said from the very beginning, I think it's easier for the Jets to move a Dylan DeMello than it would a Nate Schmidt. And I also think Nate Schmidt had a very strong World Championship for Team USA. And I think that Nate Schmidt is a guy that could have a bounce back kind of year as well. And also, too, I mean, for people who think I'm just turning my back on Logan Stanley, I'm not. I mean, this is a guy who has potential still, but he's going to have, unlike last year where he was a guy who was sort of penciled in and having a job, I think Logan Stanley is going to have to be better than some of those other young guys in order to win or keep a job this year. And again, I'm not saying he can't do it. He certainly is capable enough to do it, but he's a guy that has something to prove coming into training camp as well. And again, having said all that, Dylan DeMello could easily be on the top pairing on the Winnipeg Jets on the opening night roster, and I think he would be an effective player in that role. So, man, who are your six? I mean, you put me on the spot, and
well,
I'm not confident in my six, but I'd love to know what you think.
No, and that's why I wanted to ask you, because I mean, listen, I think like most people would love for that six to include Billy Heinola and Dylan Sandberg, as you just laid out. I've been having a hard time getting to that point. But again, much of this, much of the way that I think we all think is still trapped in last season with the guys that have been, with the Paul Maurice era and Dave Lowry taking over, just sort of the way things were. Do I think Dylan DeMello could be a healthy scratch? For
no, I don't think he'd be a healthy
scratch.
I'm saying that if he's not in the lineup, he'll be the guy that gets traded because his contract at $3 million would be easier to move.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he's going to be healthy by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that he's the most likely of the defensemen to be moved in order to try to bring back a forward.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, listen, I mean, like we're on the same page on that. I guess right now I'm sort of acknowledging the possibility that it hasn't happened yet and it might not happen. And if that doesn't happen, how can we get to that point? And listen, I don't think it does the Winnipeg Jets any good to have legit NHL players like Dylan DeMello, and I'll include Logan Stanley in there as well, sitting in the press box. So, and that just goes back to the logjam. But, certainly for a number of reasons, I think they need to see what Billy Heinola can do playing regularly. And I think we saw, glimpses of why people are as excited as they are about Dylan Sandberg and the way he projects going forward. And especially, at this time where we know this team is going to look different in a year or two, those are going to be the guys that will be real key performers at that point. And, it is time for them to get a chance to play regularly in the NHL. And but as of right now, as presently constructed, it's sort of hard to get to that point. But like you, I certainly would think that it's in the best interest of the team to make some sort of a move where you take one of those defensemen and hopefully help out the forward group. But I guess we'll see. Hey, before we go, there was one move. Do you want to hit something more on the D?
Just one quick one that, to be honest, I just thought of it as we were talking. I mean, one of the things to remember, when Rick Bowness was in Dallas, he also coached Jamie Alexiak, right? So does he see Logan Stanley in the same vein as, as a guy that the Jets outwardly and openly were looking to go after at the trade deadline 2 years ago? And let's not forget, Jamie Alexiak moved on to Pittsburgh, and then the Dallas Stars brought him back. So if Rick Bowness comes in and thinks he sees a lot of, or some of the similar qualities in Logan Stanley as he had in Jamie Alexiak, I mean, it could be a wide open opportunity for Logan Stanley, but he needs to perform at that kind of a level, right? So that's the other thing that I think will be interesting to monitor. But I mean, we've talked about this before as well. I mean, Rick Bowness's ability to integrate young defensemen into the lineup with Dallas is one of the reasons why he was hired by the Winnipeg Jets. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to, project that Heinola or Sandberg could start the year with the Moose just because they're exempt from waivers. I mean, if you're looking to turn the page and have this fresh start, you look at the players to inject that would help on those situations.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, just from a personnel perspective, I mean, if the Jets send Heinola and Sandberg to the Moose because they can, because they're waiver exempt and they can hold on to them. Listen, I get sort of why you do that if you were forced into it, but I don't know that puts you in a very good position long term, especially with those players. And you wonder what they think. I mean, I mean, that's how you guys get asked to get traded, to be honest with you, after that happening a few years when they certainly have thought and have proven that they're ready to go. And that is something that concerns me personally if we did get to that point, and I hope that's not the case. Sam Gagner, last week, Friday night, joining the Winnipeg Jets. I've been talking about it quite a bit this week. I love the signing. I mean, it's low risk, $750,000, had a pretty strong season last year. And you talk to anyone around a very good addition to any dressing room. What do you think about the signing? And if you had to look up to opening night, where do you think Sam Gagner fits in the lineup?
Yeah, for sure, Hudson. Here's the thing: like, within a minute, I think, of the signing being announced, our pal Steven Wino texted me immediately saying, "You're gonna love Sam Gagner." I got on the phone with him shortly after that. And I mean, this guy is a very astute guy who loves hockey. I mean, I would say he's very similar to Paul Stastny in terms of being a real student of the game, a guy that can play anywhere in your lineup. He can help your second power play. He can be a penalty killer. He can play on your checking line. I mean, Sam Gagner doesn't make the Jets faster or harder to play against, but his hockey IQ is off the charts. He's a guy that can produce offense in limited minutes. I mean, this is not a guy that's expected to be 20 minutes a game, but he can give you 12 to 16, no matter, depending on who's available and what you need him to do. Now, I think as it stands right now, I think Gagner is more likely to start the year on the fourth line for the Winnipeg Jets, but he can play center, he can play wing, he can give you some shelter and insulation depending on where things are at with David Gustafsson. And he's also a guy that if someone gets hurt, you can move him up the lineup and he can help you in an offensive role. So I'm with you. I mean, low risk signing. Some people say, oh, well, why was he still available if he's such a good player? I mean, the clock is ticking. I mean, Sam Gagner is 33 years old, but this is still a guy that knows what to do at the NHL level. He has had to adapt and adjust his game over time, but he's still an effective player and a guy that can get the job done. And the other part about Sam Gagner, he's a great human being. So, Huss, to your concerns about what the room is like, if you add guys like Sam Gagner, I think the chances of the room being better are already exponentially better right out of the gate. But, I mean, again, he has to come in and find his voice and all those other things as well. But I think Gagner is a really smart addition by the Winnipeg Jets. He's probably, sorry about that, he's probably a guy that they had looked at in the past, and it was just probably good timing for them to bring him in. And again, I think this is a guy that is he going to fill Paul Stastny's shoes in terms of production, 21 goals, 40-some points? Probably not. But he's going to help, fill the void when you combine what he's going to do with what Cole Perfetti and some of those other guys are going to do. And again, I think this guy's an outstanding human being, and I think he's, going to be a guy that we started the conversation talking about Mathieu Perreault. I mean, Sam Gagner is not as physical as Mathieu Perreault, but he's going to give tremendous amount of effort, and he's going to be a guy that I think fans come to appreciate what he brings to the table, both on and off the ice.
Yeah, versatile player, and that won't hurt to have an experienced forward with the right shot, maybe to help out on that second power play unit as well. Ken, as always, thanks for doing this. Very quickly, no commentary on it. Why not question of the day today? Who's winning the Super Bowl? Who is your pick today on the eve of NFL kickoff?
Yeah, this will shock you, but I'm going with the money line. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills as the pick. I know they're not a sleeper anymore, but it feels like they're ready to make the big step. But I will say I like your Chiefs to have a good year as well. And it'll be interesting to see overall. And one thing I should have mentioned off the top, all the great things at this time of the year, the CFL races are heating up, and Banjo Bowl should be absolutely outstanding on Saturday afternoon.
Cannot wait.
Should be just a tremendous weekend of sporting festivities all over the place. And I love the spice in the Blue Jays series with the Baltimore Orioles. I love the ability of Alek Manoah to be just a dominant force yesterday, and continuing to watch that MLB race with interest. But man, the NFL season is going to be fantastic. And who's your sleeper team, Huss? Like, I'm having trouble finding a team that's going to exceed expectations.
My sleeper team is the Panthers. Carolina Panthers. They're 11-1 to win the division. I mean, I think that's a little bit of a long shot. I got them at plus 375, I think, to make the playoffs. I'm a Baker guy. I mean, I really think that he got done dirty by Cleveland. He brought them to the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs, and There'll be an FU mentality of one Baker Mayfield. And of course, they start off playing Cleveland in week 1. Should be great. Ken, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Banjo Bowl. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, man. I'm going to go with Denver as the sleeper team for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess
tough division and all.
Call them a sleeper. Yeah, exactly. Well, Russell Wilson, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. All right, pal, take it easy. There's Ken Wiebe. Check out his latest on the Winnipeg Jets at Sportsnet.ca. All right, big thanks to our friends at Princess Auto. It's on Saturday afternoon, Banjo Bowl, and you know where to be before the game. That's right, the Princess Auto tailgate zone outside IG Field 2 hours before the game. $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs, pop, DJ Finesse spinning, prizes from the Princess Auto team, and little life hack. If you're in a busy area and it's tough to get a beer at halftime, pop on out specials at halftime out at the Princess Auto tailgate zone as well. Of course, Princess Auto, great sponsors of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the spot where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. We saw Ken cranking out a refill during his interview with us. And of course, the Culligan folks are working overtime, hydrating Ken and the rest of Manitoba, a family-owned business celebrating 65 years as the go-to people for water and products and services here in southern Manitoba. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and citywide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Pop down and see the gang at Culligan, 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180 on the Horn, or check out everything they've got going on online at drinkculligan.com. CC and water goes well, but you know what's even better? A CC and ginger ale. And if you haven't already tried the amazing drink of the summer, the new pre-mixed, ready-to-drink Canadian Club and ginger ale, well, this is a perfect weekend to do it. You can pick up CC and ginger for your cooler at your local beer store or Manitoba liquor marts, but you can also get the great taste of the CC and ginger throughout IG Field, along with Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, and the full Beam Suntory family of products, because, of course, Canadian Club is the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Available at the Princess Auto tailgate beforehand and inside the game. CC, a part of Bomber football and a proud supporter, and make sure to get those CC and gingers at your local beer store. And hey, tonight's the night. NFL is back. No better place to get together with the gang for game 1 of the season between the Bills and Rams than your local Boston Pizza. The game on all the big screens with big sound, awesome specials as well. Happy hour between 3 and 6 and 9 and 12 every day at every Boston Pizza. And of course, pizza flights back as well. And hey, if you are staying at home and can't make it out for a few schooners at BP, you can always check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, this is going to be really fun, gang. Had a chance to catch up with Dave Bidini, who is the co-director of the new 4-part documentary on the 72 Summit Series. 50th anniversary right now. 2 days ago was the anniversary of the game in Winnipeg. And there's a lot to get to. Some incredible pictures that you're about to see from 50 years ago, and more details on the digitized footage that they found at the Hockey Hall of Fame. The first episode is next week. Right now on Winnipeg Sports Talk, let's welcome in Dave Bidini to talk about the upcoming Summit 72. Dave, thanks so much for doing this. It's a real pleasure to have you on the program.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, totally my pleasure.
You are such an interesting dude. I mean, you've been involved in the music, writing, but you're also a huge hockey fan. I mean, maybe if you could, before we talk about the actual product, tell us about getting involved in this, what brought it to life, and why it was so important to be to tell this story with everything available to you now in 2022.
I've always kind of, like in a bunch of my books, my second book was called Tropic of Hockey, where I went around the world and played hockey. And and we made a documentary called The Hockey Nomad about it for CBC. And even when I was, writing that book, I found reason to talk about 72. I remember being on a bus in the desert in United Arab Emirates, coming back from this tournament, like just a rec league tournament. But there were some pretty high level players, and there was a bunch of kids from Switzerland who were in this tournament, and they were Italians, young Italians. So we were talking, and I started telling them about Esposito and Phil and about 72. And I kind of wrote about that moment, telling these kids about, being a young Italian kid myself and seeing this guy on television, after Game 4, and how he kind of called out all of Canada because Team Canada was booed in Vancouver and the whole nation was turning against the team. I just talked about like how important it was to see him, this Italian Canadian on the CBC, because in the 70s, there weren't Italian Canadians on the CBC. It was all white people. So I sort of communicated that to them. I wrote about that in Tropic Hockey. So I've been kind of talking about 72 for a long time. And, when this opportunity came up, Nic Demski, the showrunner, we were friends. He shot The Hockey Nomad, the first one. And he was like, "Oh, Dryden's called me. He wants to do this official documentary." I would have been crazy to not get in there and, get my hands dirty and be involved in this project. And as a bonus, there was about 60 hours of unseen archival footage from the series. So, when that kind of stuff is, presented to you, there's the opportunity, to tell it in a way that's really alive and vibrant and different in terms of what we know about that series. So totally jumped at the opportunity.
Well, you mentioned that archival footage. I mean, I believe it was like 100 reels from the Hockey Hall of Fame discovered and remastered with all the incredible technology we have right now. I mean, was that like finding a pot of gold in a back room for an event, for a project like this?
Yeah, we kind of knew that there was that. Well, Eagleson, well, some people call him disgraced. I suppose he is to a point, but he continues to be a relatively vibrant guy in his 80s. He hinted that there was this stuff out there. He commissioned a documentary for that series for those 28 days in September in 72, but it never saw the light of day. They ran out of money or whatever. They couldn't find a broadcaster. I'm not sure. I think everybody was so burnt out after that event that they never got around to doing it. So, yeah. And if you've ever been to the archives or the warehouse, really, at the Hall of Fame, it's insane. Like, there's so much stuff. So it wasn't surprising that there was this stack of reels, under a bunch of boxes in the corner, which was the case. So we knew that this footage was out there. We didn't know to what extent it was out there. And, another thing that happened once we sort of announced our intentions to do this film was, a lot of home movies found us. People were sending in their Super 8 footage that they'd taken, whether it was domestically here in Canada or abroad. 3,000 Canadians went to Russia for games 5 to 8 in 72. So a lot of people shot film, a lot of still photographs too. So that was super exciting. Like you mentioned about technology, we had the opportunity to really clean that stuff up. Not to make it, not to scrub it too clean, because it really looks like we wanted to maintain that aesthetic of kind of home movie stuff. But we were able to just brighten the colors and bump it up a little bit. But the 16 millimeter footage that was shot by Al Stewart for this documentary is beautiful anyways. And it's frankly 72, like there are colors that exist of that time that kind of aren't really, part of our color scape in 2022 and stuff. So that was delicious. The filmmakers, all that stuff, to use that kind of as the spine for the series.
Dave, as part of the documentary, which begins on the 14th with episode number 1, you were able to interview, a number of legends on the Canadian side, but also the Russian side. And I'm interested, this is still 50 years ago, and what stood out to you about the memories even recently, all these years later, from both sides? And How different was the Canadian perspective to the Russian?
Yeah, there's a lot there in that answer. I mean, the Russian, it's funny, and Dryden talks about this too. It's one of those rare instances, in a way, that, where kind of both sides did win. I mean, the Russians their style of play and their approach to the game was validated, by the nature of the series, it being so close. I mean, they were supremely intimidated by, the legend of the NHL players and how great they were. And they really didn't think their system was going to stand up against just the sheer talent of the NHL players. And of course they win 7-3 in Montreal, and the series goes down to the last 34 seconds. So the Russians felt great about their program coming out of that series, and the Canadians were vindicated because they won, right? So it was kind of one of those perfect situations. And also you got to remember in 72, I mean, I was 9, but knowing what I know about 70s and Cold War, we just didn't, there was no window. Popularly, there was no window into the Soviet Union. It was a closed society, right? In a lot of ways. So, and whatever images, found their way onto our television were largely, from the propaganda machine. So having, being able to see people in the stands in Luzhniki Arena, really, it was a gift to us. We were able to see this empire on the other side of the world. And conversely, I met Russians who said, seeing French Canadians, Anglophiles in the Montreal Forum, in August 1972 blew their minds, honestly. The way people dressed, distinguished men and women, just groovy chicks in the crowd and cool dudes. It was, the whole world opened up for them. So that's really kind of beautiful as well in terms of the cultural exchange that just existed naturally because we were able to see them, they were able to see us, and not merely in a sporting way, but in a cultural way too.
Dave, I mean, when we talk about the Summit Series, I mean, it certainly is a hockey story. It's one of the most famous hockey series of all time. So, I mean, there is the sporting event too, but as you kind of alluded to, so much of it was about what was not happening on the ice. Two different cultures, two different societies. As far as the documentary goes, how would you compare the hockey content to what this series meant to people in two very different societies 50 years ago?
Well, that's the neat thing about 72, I think. And that was the thing that made it really interesting to us as filmmakers, in that, the cultural nature of the event matched the sporting nature of the event. That's pretty rare, I think, in sports where, the cultural context, there's as much depth to it as it is the sporting context. The Russians after Montreal arrived in Toronto, and because they won, they were given an opportunity. So they were given a pass, basically, and they were escorted down Yonge Street to Sam the Record Man, where they were given an allowance and able to buy albums, which they could only buy on the black market in Russia. So that was, incredible for them. And conversely, the Canadians, when they got to Russia, it was kind of the opposite. They had stakes disappear, all their beer disappears. Dryden tells a story about, all of their Coke vanished. It was all taken and sold on the black market. And I think before Game 7, they were really excited to hear that they were going to get, soda pop. They were going to get, something to drink. They thought it was going to be Coke. And then Dryden says a skid of Jolly Cola, which was like a soft drink from Denmark, appeared in the dressing rooms and stuff. So all of that behind the scenes stuff is really intriguing to the cultural context. And that was really fun to kind of tell that story and hear the players talk about those experiences as well.
Dave Bidini is the co-writer and co-director of Summit 72, a 4-part series commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 72 Summit Series. Episode 1, Hockey Nation's debuts on the CBC on September 14th. Dave, I'm sure, I mean, obviously, we've just sort of talked about how famous this series has been, its imprint on Canadian history. When doing all this work for this project, was there something that you learned that you didn't know before that really stuck with you or surprised you?
One of the things that Harry Sinden told us, coach of the Canadian team, I should say too, Harry just turned 90, and his memory was just so acute of something that happened 50 years ago, which was a great gift to us, having someone who was there vividly portray all the stuff that happened. But told us that, Canada was down 5-3 going into the third period of Game 8. And one of the things that he did tactically was he had his team, he had the guys play the first 10 minutes of the third period as if they were ahead 5-3 rather than behind 5-3. So we had them protect that deficit, if that makes sense. And his idea was keep it at 5-3, score in the first half of the last 10 minutes, and then again to tie it in the last half of the 5 minutes. Well, history tells us that some Russian official came to the Canadians at the beginning of the third period and said, if the game is tied, we'll have scored one more goal and we will claim victory. So Harry was like, oh, my idea went completely out the window after that. But they did play kind of a prevent defense in the beginning. They got a goal to make it 5-3, so it was a bonus. But I thought that was really interesting tactically. As opposed to coming out immediately and getting a quick goal, he wanted them to protect that deficit. So that was just neat to be taken through all of that. And that was something I didn't know walking into this series. That was new information to me.
Dave, of course, the first 4 games were in Canada, then it went overseas to Russia. Game number 3 was in Winnipeg. In the piece promoting the documentary, it's referred to as a wobbly tie. What do we know about the game in Winnipeg and where it fit into the overall 8-game opus?
Yeah, Winnipeg was pivotal. The Russians scored 2 shorthanded goals, which was quite illuminating, really, when you think of the power, the Canadian power play was, had some of the greatest players of its era on the ice. So that was, troubling, I think, to the Canadian team because of that. Also, it was a comeback tie for the Russians as well, and traditionally, the Canadians had won in Toronto, and they expected that momentum to move on, which it did for the first half of the game. And then the Russians were able to meet the Canadians, even on the scoreboard by coming back and by getting these shorthanded goals. I think the Canadian brass knew they were in deeper than they were because of that comeback. Also, the Russians played a bunch of kids in that game as well, which, again, we'd got to know Yakushev, we'd got to know Harlamov, we'd got to know Tretiak, but these bench players came out and dominated the game as well. So seeing that the Russians had this kind of incredible depth was also terrifying to the Canadians. And then moving into Vancouver, it's no contest again. So 2 games basically are blowouts in the Russians' favor in Canada. And you can imagine going to Russia after that. People forget how down the whole hockey community, the whole Canadian hockey community was on Team Canada going to Russia. I mean, it just seemed purely impossible that they would come back, playing on an ice surface that was nearly twice the size of the one that they were used to, going behind the Iron Curtain. Espo talks about phone calls in the middle of the night. One of the fans that we talked to mentions, at 3:00 in the morning, all of a sudden, the Russian national anthem would be playing in her room out of a speaker that was built into the wall. So they were spied upon. So, it seems so unlikely that they would come back to win. And of course, they lose the first game in Russia. They have to win the next 3 in order to win the series, and they do. One of the greatest comebacks of all time, and considering the conditions, one of the most preposterous comebacks of all time. But, I think Winnipeg people felt good going into the game, not only because of the momentum after Toronto, but also Winnipeg had been the home. It had been the crossroads for international hockey throughout the 60s and early 70s. It was base camp for Hockey Canada, and a lot of the Russian players and Russian teams had come through there to play Team Canada, Father Bauer's team. But that was all, in hindsight, that was an advantage for the Russians because they'd been there before, right? They hadn't really been to Toronto and Montreal, but Winnipeg was known to them a little bit. So they felt a little bit more at ease. But coming out of that game and kind of coughing up that lead and having the shorthanded goal scored against us was the alarm bells that started to ring and people started to get that sinking feeling.
Dave, really looking forward to episode 1, which is titled Hockey Nations. I guess before we ask you specifically what we should look forward to in episode 1, how did you figure out or decide what to put into each episode? I mean, how is it separated, if you will?
It's one of the kind of the awful things about making art and really television, because you're hamstrung a little bit by length, especially because it's a broadcast entity that has to, dance around commercials and fit into that time slot. It's not as if it was we didn't make it for streaming where, episodes can be as long as they have to be. So yeah, that was real. Honestly, that was the toughest thing, having to decide what to leave out, right? Because there's so much story, and there's 34 Canadian players and I think 26 Russian players. So many stories, so many characters, really, and so many behind the scenes characters also. And so much narrative. So we had to be slightly vicious, I think, when it came to deciding what was truly essential. But the series could be twice the length that it is because there's so much in there.
No doubt about it. Well, for those of us that are looking forward to setting our PVRs for the 14th, tee up Hockey Nations episode 1 with us for us, if you would, Dave.
Yeah, we wanted to establish early on that this was going to be a film about an event that you hadn't seen before. A film that was able to exist as a piece of cinema, television, that existed in 2022, because it's largely about an event that has happened. There's always that fear that it can live in as a nostalgic work. And we didn't want it to be that. So we wanted it to have pace. We wanted it to be, cut in a way that was, that really kind of moved, as opposed to, talking head, highlight. We really wanted it to have its own kind of rhythm, I suppose. So, and also I was the music director. So, I programmed the kind of stuff that you might not normally hear in a work in which the subject is hockey. There's one sequence I'm really proud of where, the third period, the Russians scored, I think it's 3 unanswered goals, to win 7-3. And I wanted to sort of reflect kind of the poetry, I suppose, of the Russians. Remember in 72, the way they skated, we take it for granted now, but players circling back with the puck that never happened, right? And behind the back passes and moving in almost like east-west versus north and south, right? Moving in kind of a circular way. I wanted to portray that. So we found a Leonard Cohen song. The game takes place in Montreal. So Leonard Cohen was the voice of Montreal in the 1970s, really. So it's beautiful. We lay a song called The Traitor, this Leonard Cohen song, over shots of the Russian players moving down the ice and skating beautifully. I mean, they made the Canadian players look like the dinosaurs that they were. That dinosaur would adapt over the course of the 8-game series, but in the beginning they were slow, they were rugged, they were hairy, they were louts on ice in a lot of ways. They just couldn't keep up to the Russians. So we wanted to reflect that in a really kind of an evocative way. And so that's something to look for in episode 1, but I think people really like it. And the series, the way we tell the stories. The series really kind of moved, I guess, over the course of those 4 episodes. Everyone's a little bit different, and I really hope people enjoy it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I cannot wait for this. It is such a famous series, and it's a famous cultural event. And regardless of how old you are, I think you really will enjoy it. The first episode is September 14th, with a new episode each week up until October 5th on the CBC. It is Summit 72. Dave Bidini, thank you so much. All the best with the project, and enjoy the rest of the show. And as I said, we'll be watching and we'll be talking about it here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Appreciate your time.
Hey, my pleasure. Great talking to you.
Thanks to Dave Bidini for stopping by. That is going to be must watch for hockey fans. Summit 72 debuting next week. And you know, they were kind enough to send us a whole whackload of really cool photos. So maybe after a couple of the episodes, we'll dig back into that a little bit on the YouTube channel. Hey, big thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ for their support. I did promise DQ Nick coming on this week. He is continuing his assault on the burgers of Burger Week. We'll do a Burger Week review with a couple days left, so you can still take advantage of a few suggestions early next week. I think technically Tuesday is the day we're looking for. But in the meantime, you can grab a delicious stack burger at the Nick and Nikki DQ and take the whole fam for the amazing ice cream treat known as the Blizzard and everything they've else have going on at DQ. 4 locations: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And hey, having a Banjo Bowl party or something going on this weekend you can use a DQ ice cream cake for? Hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll custom make it for you to be picked up quick and easy at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQ locations. Well, it's Banjo Bowl weekend, and our friends at Little Brown Jug are ready for you. No, hopefully a lot of our visitors might pop down and check out what they've got going on in William Avenue. WSTers know, especially the ones that were with us for the trivia night, sports trivia night last Thursday, the beautiful new patio that's down at Little Brown Jug HQ at the brewery and tap room. It was just an amazing venue for our first sports trivia night. But of course, we're going to be in parking lots before the game, maybe celebrating a Bomber win, hopefully on Saturday. Nothing goes better than Winnipeg's favorite local beer, the 1919 and Little Brown Jug. Check out all Little Brown Jug beers at the tap room on William Avenue, or pick it up at your favorite local beer store. You can also order online for citywide delivery at littlebrownjug.ca. Tough night for the fellas last night at Assiniboia Downs, and we're dwindling down with just a few days left of live racing. But they will be back next week. We're going to try and get out there before it's all finished up and continue our head-to-head challenge between myself and Remis, which, of course, you can get in on by betting on Assiniboia Downs and tracks around the world at hpibet.com. If you want to make an arrangements, a reservation in the dining room for one of the final days of live racing, give them a call, 885-3330, and get in the dining room for the fleeting end of the season, which has been a great season for our friends at Assiniboia Downs. More online, asdowns.com. All right, Coolbet Lines, let's get to it. NFL kickoff tonight. We got the Bills at the Super Bowl champion Rams. Amazing matchup to start it off. The line is 2.5. Although if you're taking the Bills right now, you're getting even money at Coolbet on laying the 2.5 points. Dusty and I just did our lock shop for today. By the way, lock shop has expanded. Follow us at Lock Shop Bets on Twitter. We'll be dropping the new YouTube channel for the Lock Shop next week as well. But in the meantime, I've retweeted it. It's all over at Dustin Nielsen's Twitter account for the video. And the podcast is up right now. And we like the Bills. And I actually like the under in this game as well. Even money right now on under 51.5 as well. Kind of just feeling 27-24 in this game. A 3-point lead, a close one. And I did just do a bet builder as well, Remo, with my picks from our Coolbet picks of the day. I like Devin Singletary under 46.5 yards. And I like a Gabe Davis touchdown. Of course, the last time we saw Gabe Davis, he was catching 4 in a playoff game. Unfortunately for the Bills, they got Mahomes by the Grim Reaper in 13 seconds at the end of that game. And I think that's part of the reason why I think they'll come out so hungry tonight against the Bills. But here's one for you. If you want to have fun with the Coolbet bet builder option, Devin Singletary under 44.5 yards. Josh Allen, 2 or more passing touchdowns thrown. Gabe Davis, anytime touchdown. Bills minus 2.5, under 51.5, 20-1 on the bet builder. $20 pays $4.20. So that's what I got. Remo, what's your feel for this game tonight?
I'm shocked that I know everyone's like all on the Bills here to win the Super Bowl, but I'm shocked the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, are home dogs in the season opener. Am I the only one mentioning this? That seems weird. So as far as bet builders go, I just did one. I had Cooper Kupp over 95 yards, Stafford over, I think it was 270 yards. And there was one more, I think Diggs over 70 yards. Those are receiving. So
are you on the Rams tonight? You're feeling the Rams?
Yes, I'm feeling. They're at home. A home dog. Super Bowl champion. Plus 2.5 doesn't make sense to me. Is Bills Mafia taking over SoFi? Is that what's happening?
Well, Bills Mafia is taking over
everywhere.
I mean, yeah. I think the fact like people are so hyped up on the Bills, it's like they turn the TV off with 13 seconds left in that playoff game and have already crowned their ass, as they say. Are the Bills overrated? I'm not sure, but I am surprised that they are such a significant favorite in the AFC and overall, albeit Chiefs now the number 2 betting favorite right now, just ahead of Tampa. I think the strength is in the AFC, though. I really do think that the top AFC teams are a bit better than the NFC. And to be honest, I'm not a huge believer in the Rams. I like San Francisco to win that division, and I like San Francisco to win the NFC this year. So it's all there. You've still got time to get your props in and season bets, league leaders, MVP, Super Bowl, all that stuff at Coolbet right now under the NFL tab. And it's a perfect time if you haven't already. You use the promo code WST. If you haven't bet at Coolbet before, if you put in WST when you make your first deposit, you'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 to play on NFL season. And of course, the upcoming CFL action. Let's get a quick update on what the numbers are for the weekend. BC still 3-point favorites in Montreal. Toronto 1-point favorites in Ottawa. Bombers 7.5-point home favorites at home in the Banjo Bowl. And the Calgary Stampeders and Edmonton Elks, the nightcap after the Bomber Rider rematch, opened up at 7. Calgary now -9. Not surprising considering the way the Elks have played at home so far this season and really for the last couple of years. It's all there at Coolbet, US Open as well, curling and more. And don't forget WST. If you haven't played there before, make sure you use that promo code and get that 100% bonus. All right, before we go, I know there's been a lot of chatter in the chat about the passing of the Queen. I'll be honest, Remo, I learned that from the show notes, finishing up the lock shop, getting in, going over what you'd put in. And I'm like, the Queen passed away? Oh my God. Obviously condolences to the royal family. But the sports fallout of that is that the DP World Tour, this is the European Tour event that there was so much controversy about. There was an injunction to allow some of the live players in. And as Mike McIntyre mentioned, it cost some legitimate European Tour players like Winnipeg's Aaron Cockrell the opportunity to play in the event. Well, when news came out that the Queen had passed, play was stopped. They will not be back on the course today. I guess there's a 10-day period of mourning in the United Kingdom. I don't believe they're playing tomorrow, and we are wondering what this means for the BMW Championship going forward, whether they'll play it, whether they'll move it to later on into Monday or Tuesday. But that's sort of a developing story from the golf world. But Remo, pop back in here. There's a few things we should get to before the end of the program. And I mentioned the horrible injury to Max Murphy of the Goldeyes last night in their big win to kick off the playoffs. He was just announced as the American Association Player of the Year. Just had an absolutely monster season. He and his teammate Williams both getting 30-plus home runs for the first time ever. And that black cloud around the team after that leg injury last night, which was described to me by a couple friends behind the bench, behind the plate as Joe Theismann-esque. Really, really unfortunate. But there you have it. the American Association Player of the Year, Max Murphy, who has just been incredible since coming here to the Peg a couple seasons ago.
I like how they have this Player of the Year award. So much talk in, MLB about most valuable and defining valuable. Just give it to the best players. So sucks that he had the leg injury, and it sounds pretty horrific. Got carried off on a stretcher. But you hope that they can win the one of the two this weekend in Fargo.
Yeah. Now, a couple of other notes on a local level. Shout out to the Valor FC lads. They have been the best team in the CPL for the better part of the last month. They had a tough loss to Pacific, but they're 5-1-1 in their last 7 matches, have made up the ground to get into the playoffs, and are very much alive for their first postseason appearance. Sean Rea was announced the Player of the Month in the CPL. And a shout out to our guy, former WST guest, Phil Dos Santos, new manager of Valor, who was named Manager of the Month in the CPL as well. So great news coming up, and we'll have some tickets for the upcoming Valor game to get out there and support them when they need it the most. I believe September 18th, the next game, but stay tuned to WST for those. And the Ranger fan who sucker punched that guy in the playoffs, was it the Lightning fan that got sucker punched, Dream?
Yeah, it was pretty viral at the time. They're just like leaving
It was horrifying.
the walkway at Madison Square Garden, and a guy's got a Lightning jersey, and some guy just went up and socked him in the face. Like that's pretty sick. And I'm sure we all forgot about that now because you see something on the internet and you forget about it like the next day. But there was some news on that one today, huh?
Yeah, well, he's been sentenced to 200 hours of community service and no jail time, also anger management. And honestly, I think we could be saying this in many areas of society, I guess, especially considering what we've just been dealing with in Saskatchewan. And thank God that ordeal's over and the healing can begin for folks at the James Smith First Nation with the news yesterday that the suspect had been apprehended and eventually died after a medical emergency. But that guy should have been in jail, straight up. I mean, anyone that saw that was such a violent assault with absolutely no ability for the individual to even defend themselves. I would have had no issue whatsoever if that guy got a couple months in jail, just to remind people that you can't go around doing that. It was a horrifying incident during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Nazem Kadri, shout out to Naz, made a $1 million donation to an ambulatory surgical center in his hometown of London at the London Health Science Center. It'll be known as the Nazem Kadri Surgical Center. And shout out to Brooke Henderson. Longtime listeners know how much of a fan I am of Brooke, but maybe more so the PGA 2K game. Well, the new version is out next month. Tigers on the cover, and Brooke Henderson, Lexi Thompson, and Lydia Ko are the franchise's first female pros. So that's all good. Now, Rima, I wanted to end on this. You would certainly be the guy to talk about this. I saw you tweeting about it earlier. What is going on with the NHL Center Ice package, and why are Canadians so bent right now as to the new direction as to how you can get every game being a Canadian?
Okay, I don't think enough people are bent about this yet. I think as it gets closer to the season, this is going to become more to light. So previously, before this season, if you wanted to watch out-of-market games, you had to get you could get center ice on your cable provider or subscribe to NHL Live, Rogers Game Center Live, whatever it was called. $175. You'd get access on the apps on every device, watch on the internet. You get home and away feeds. You could do the quad box or whatever. So I went to go open the app and I found out recently. Now, this happened actually in June and went kind of under the radar because there's no hockey games on. But now as we're getting closer, people are realizing that there's no NHL Live this year. It is on Rogers Game Center Now, premium. So Rogers Now, SN Now Premium, and they're charging you more, $250, but they're making you get all this additional soccer games and You also get WWE Network. So, but if you just want to watch hockey, you really don't care about that stuff. They're also not having every home and away feed, and I don't know if this is going to be true, but I do wonder if they're going to be showing, like, if you're a Jets fan out of Winnipeg, are they going to be showing the TSN feeds on the Rogers app? Because those companies hate each other. So there was some speculation. I don't know if that's true. However, this has been confirmed by them on their own website. And shout out to Dom Lucician from The Athletic, who's bringing attention to this. And I think a lot more people are going to realize that Canadians are getting absolutely hosed. And they're getting us
Rogers hosing average Canadians?
Inferior service.
Don't say.
So you go onto the app and it gives you this. And so Dom, tweeted out that, hey, it's no longer NHL Live in Canada. It's SN Now. And look at this. SN Now is personal use and allows for only one concurrent stream. So people like me or like Dom, who have got like a bunch of different Fire Sticks and on multiple TVs that I can watch whatever game, can only watch one game at a time on the Sportsnet Now.
It's 2022. Can't just like watching one game at a time. That's like 1970s.
Yeah, who watches one game at a time? So you got one game on your TV, one game on your laptop, on your tablet. Maybe you got multiple TVs, but it's really sad that this is what's happening to hockey in Canada. And the reason why I tweeted it out earlier this week, because the NBA seems to have it right, Hustler, that this year for their package, their games are $99.
Yeah, they're dropping the entire package competing with streaming. And the NHL's, at least in Canada and Rogers, they're essentially forcing people to find alternate ways of finding their games, especially if you can only get one on at a time. I mean, face it, folks, the people that are buying these packages, I mean, yeah, there's some hardcore hockey fans that just want to watch one particular team, but the vast majority are people that are playing fantasy, they're playing DFS, they're betting on the games, and they want to be able to access and watch with their package a number of different games on busy nights in the NHL. And listen, the fact that one of these big Canadian companies, either one of the big boys screwing this up, is the least surprising thing we could possibly get right now on the program. And it just goes to show when it comes to telecommunications, the way Canadians are hosed with the pricing of our cell phones and our data, to what we have to deal with when it comes to things like this, getting the information in 2022, streaming. We're way behind everywhere else, and Canadians are paying way more than everyone else. It's a joke.
Yeah, it seems like because Rogers paid so much for the rights and they're not making money off of it, they got to appease those shareholders and pass off the costs to the fans, making you pay for, content you may not want, like WWE Network or some other of those of the soccer league. So shout out to Dom for tweeting, because I tweeted out yesterday. I'm not as popular as Dom, so I tweeted and no one cares. But Dom, he's got 77,000 followers and says, "Hey, this is garbage," and 650 likes, 49 retweets, bunch of comments. So we'll see what happens with it. I'll say my biggest concern right now. Affects me personally. So I showed my grandmother how to watch the NHL app on her iPad for when she goes to Palm Springs. She likes to watch Jets game. I'm really concerned now about having to show her a new app, but also concerned that she's going to have to, so you can subscribe to ESPN in the US to do it, but can you get the can you do that in Canada? Like, I can't physically go down there and do it on her iPad. I'm really
gonna have to get Bubby hooked up for the season. Come on, this is on your shoulders. You need to figure this out.
I'm gonna have to. So gonna have to have a meeting with my dad, because he'll probably be there and have to do some tech support. But how are people crossing the border gonna be watching? Because I don't think it works to watch SportsCenter now when you're in the US. And obviously, people who watch hockey are in the US and Canada and traveling back and forth. So that's something interesting.
Good stuff. It's your boy Bruce. No, Remis is not wearing an NHL hat. This is an NFL hat. Shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Greg had a little gift for the WST boys. I've got the Rob Lowe version, the fan of the league hat that he famously wore at the Super Bowl. And Remis has the gold version, little exclusive NFL. Fans of the league, great to have the NFL back today. All right, we've gone long. We got to get this show up on podcast for people in time for their drive home. Cannot wait for this game tonight, folks. Enjoy it wherever you are. Make sure you get your picks in, set your lineups. First time all year I've been able to tell people that. Oh, it's fun. And then tomorrow on the program, it's going to be awesome. We'll get ready for the Banjo Bowl. Ed Tate will join us from IG Field with a full breakdown of how the Bombers are looking heading into Saturday's game. Brandon Rowicki pops by, talk a little Bombers, and get his thoughts on the Jets heading into the Rookie Showcase next week. And of course, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with a Week 1 NFL notebook. And we'll drop the marbles at the end of the program as well. And congratulations to Dave the Fantasy, who I'm going to be hooking up with very soon to get him his winning hoodie from last week's festivities. Folks, appreciate you joining us today. Thanks to Nic Demski, Dave Bidini, and of course, the loquacious Ken Wiebe for joining us today on the program, Michael Remis for making it happen, and everyone for popping into the YouTube chat. Once again, thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, and most of all, to you for making us a part of your day. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. live on YouTube, Marbles Friday, getting into the Banjo Bowl in Week 1 of the National Football League here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Enjoy the game tonight, y'all.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.